and if he wants to play. But why risk, one of your best players to injury, for really a meaningless, games just to play the game itself. And then on top of that, in the same game against the Broncos is, hey, what's up, Jack G, is losing, Parham in the same game. So it was really interesting, again, Parham, I can kind of take him or leave him, for the most part. But what the Raiders did was really surprising. They had Charles Grant on the roster, active roster for that game. What's up, Nap, Andrew? But they didn't bring in Charles Grant. Carlos Rogers was inactive. He was on the roster, but inactive for the game. But so I was thinking, why not play Grant? He's a third-round draft pick. He's going to play on the left side. They kind of drafted him to be a tackle. But, you could also slide him in as a guard if he really is not going to be a tackle. And they said he's coming from a small school, so that would make sense to give him that shot. But what they did, and I don't get this, they put Will Putnam on, who's a backup center. And that's the only reason why they kept him. He's a backup center. And they put Will Putnam in at the left guard, which is kind of mind-boggling. It really didn't make a whole lot of sense, for that to happen and why they did that. And me too. I agree. But so, and again, you're going against a great Broncos defense. I mean, I knew it was going to be a tough battle, even with the guys being healthy. I looked at the stats, and I brought this up last week. They gave up, 5 sacks over the last 3 games, and Denver just tore down these boys on the offensive line, and it makes me nervous for any game going forward based on what we got. So, DZ, I know you're feeling, in the way of what you've been through all season, and I felt like it all hit me at once. So, in that, man, I agree. Putnam, I would have liked him better at center, and then even Meredith moved over to the left guard. That would have been, I think, a better move. But again, it didn't happen. So, but yeah, it was really painful, and that game was not a very good game. So, the one thing I saw right off the bat, and I saw this brought up, and this hasn't been done since 1950. Think about it, 1950, 75 years ago, when both teams have more penalties than they do first downs. 75 years since that's happened. I will say the first half he played much better. Oh, and I almost thought about this too. Since there's really not much to lose, Caleb Rogers may get a shot to play. So again, we're talking about the offensive guards. But at this point, I know the kid's raw and young. But, it's when you say that to a guy, it's like see guy, hit guy, knock guy over, smash him, Lockie smash. I wouldn't even mind seeing Lockie Tossie on the roster to just throw him out there. There's nothing to lose, except maybe get another quarterback hurt, which Gino did. But in the first half, the defense was, for the Raiders, looked nice. Offense, of course, not. Broncos didn't have a first down until 5 minutes into the second quarter. But again, the game didn't really go the way for either team. So it was just a really poor played game. Both quarterbacks looked horrible. Gino, it's kind of hard to almost say. It's like Gino actually looked better than Bo. Just looking at the stats, 1 pick versus 2 picks. So the offense really had a whole lot to really they need to improve on. And for an 8-2 team, and Richie, I would say, as you going forward, that would kind of make me nervous, with how good your defense is, but how bad the offense is doing. But got to give credit to Denver's defense as well. They had 22 pressures on the quarterback. They were just demolishing that offensive line. Nick Benito by himself, 8 pressures, 1.5 sacks. Raiders only got 11 pressures, during that game. But I will say that, again, special teams, which it was an up and down game, for the Raiders. It was so bad, enough on the offensive side for the most part, punting, kicking, field goals. They had a punt block. They had a field goal, I think, blocked. It got Tom McMahon, our special teams coach, or coordinator, fired based off of that. So they had to bring in the intern, which is a guy on the roster. I don't know anything about him. I tried to look up, but it really, when I read the bio, it really didn't go wow or anything in the way of Darius Swinton. But I will say the highlight of the entire game for me was our punter, AJ Cole. And he was unreal. He had 2 punts like within 2 yards or less. And one of them, Richie, on this play, this was the coolest thing. When that ball hit on the 1 yard line, it just immediately went right and out of bounds, straight across. I've never seen anything like that in all my years.
I've never seen that in my life, ever. Not once. There's normally like shifting forward or backwards or something, right? Like it goes one direction. It doesn't just go straight like over.
Yeah, straight sideways.
Just as an aside, the real term one, that is a great avatar logo for your YouTube handle. Let's just say I'm a fan. I think that's fantastic. Anyways, I agree. It is very strange for a kind of a straight down punt to then kick straight kind of horizontally across the field, one way, shape, or form. It's really bizarre.
And what's even crazier about it is that it didn't go forward and it didn't go backwards. It just stayed on a straight line. It bizarre. So that's kind of, let's go back and forth. So what did you want to, comment on based on what I brought up? And then I'll do the same with yours.
So obviously for me, my big takeaways were almost all defensive. Overall, I did think that there was some positives on the offensive side of the ball, but they were, we'll call it fleeting. So the problem that I saw with the offense is that, and look, there's a whole whack of people in Broncos country that are like, stop slamming Bo for his poor play. Like, it wasn't that bad, and it wasn't this, and it wasn't the other. And I'm like, okay, look, like, I realize that like we live in a culture of simps, and we all want to sit there and be like, we want to gas people up because we think they have fragile egos and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine and fair, I suppose. Like, it's just kind of the nature of the beast in terms of the world we live in today. But 2 things can be true, okay? Number one, that could well have been one of Bo's worst games that he's played in the NFL, like certainly within kind of that upper tier. He just made some really bad choices in that Raiders game. But at the same time, you can still have confidence that he can absolutely turn it around and that you are still a fan of him being your franchise quarterback and are behind him. Like 2 things like that can in fact be true, right? Like they're not like juxtaposed to one another, right? Like they can actually be congruent, and you can share those 2 opinions together. And I think there's just far too many Broncos fans that are basically of the opinion that if you criticize Bo for poor play on the field, that somehow means that you hate Bo and want him to be fully replaced, don't want him to play, don't like him as your franchise quarterback, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've never subscribed to that as an approach as a fan. I actually just believe that what we're seeing from Bo is I have major questions, like huge questions about Bo and what he did or did not do, and or if it took in the offseason. So as an example, as a Broncos fan, one thing that we were told that he worked on in the offseason was his footwork. We were told that he worked with Tom House. We were told that he had some sessions with Peyton Manning. We were told that he did all these things in terms of fixing some of his quirks that he had in his rookie season. Well, I'm still waiting for those changes to have been implemented because I'm seeing almost all of the same footwork problems.
Richie, can I butt in for a second about Bo?
Mm-hmm.
So he is going to year 2. You know, historically, QBs have had sophomore slumps, and it's kind of weird to see a quarterback having a sophomore slump on a winning team with, you know, tied for the best record in the AFC. But I also kind of think that maybe Sean Payton really put a lot on his plate going in this season, and there could be some struggles on that part because, you know, he probably had a base offense year 1 with him. Going into year 2, Sean probably was like, "Hey man, we're gonna throw some more at you," and I'm wondering if that's where he's having issues in year 2. So that's what I see.
It's interesting you're saying that, actually, because if you remember the Giants game, where like the Broncos scored like 33 points or something stupid like that in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the feedback loop items, if you will, from the, you know, staunch Broncos fans were, see, all that was Sean Payton like letting Bo go, right? Like taking the chains off of Bo Nix.
Essentially saying that he had a leash on him or something.
Right, exactly. And so it's funny that you mentioned that because, like, I'm not saying I disagree with what your comment is in terms of maybe he was held back or maybe he has had a lot put on his plate or some variation of it. But what I am saying is that a lot of Broncos country, and when I say a lot, I probably would argue the majority, especially of prominent voices, at least on X, as well as kind of the other podcasters that you would hear and listen to, they would probably come out and say the exact opposite to what you're saying.
That he hasn't been given more of the playbook, or
yes, they're basically saying the counter to what your statement is, which is Bo hasn't been given enough freedom to run the playbook.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
He hasn't had the chains, you know, cut from his wrists and ankles.
I don't buy that 1 second. Nope.
Look, I did not say I put myself in that category.
Yeah.
Okay. I simply said that is the narrative that is existing within Broncos country, generally speaking, right? That is the narrative that is brewing kind of within Broncos country. My statement and my comments are, no, I believe that Bo is struggling with certain things. And I also believe that our offensive line is struggling with certain things. And you're seeing Sean Payton attempting to play a game of chess on the field by allowing Bo to try to flourish while also trying to mask some of the offensive line deficiencies. And it's a balancing act that is occurring on the field because, and hear me out on this, and this is why I think I might be correct on this, is it also explains why offensively we are taking so long to get right as the game progresses, and we are effectively a fourth quarter team. Because if you have two moving pieces as an offensive minded coach and trying to basically play the game of chess, which is effectively what football is on screen, I think that that's part of the reason why you're seeing what you're seeing.
You know, and the weird thing with Bo, you know, and I noticed this, you know, in what I saw, it seemed like almost on every play, any passing play, he had the happy feet. It's like he was nervous almost the whole time. And granted, I will say this for those who don't know, there was a lot of wind, so it did make it harder on both quarterbacks. The wind was like 15 miles an hour, pushing that ball around. But so do you feel like it's Bo? Then it's like with him, is he able like to call his own plays then? But if so, then you would think he'd almost be more comfortable. But it again, it just seems like I didn't even see this really as much last year as I did this last game. It's just those feet. He never planted there. He's almost ready to run on
Correct.
each one.
People have been saying that for weeks now. So
Correct. I mean, I've been saying that for most of the season.
yeah, he's just got a nasty habit, and it's tough to break out of those. And he's still young.
It's caused by two things: Wattenberg, number one, and Wattenberg, number two. Okay. Look, I'm consistent, if nothing else. Let's just.
I get you.
Okay. And what that nets out to be, Jack, and this is, look, we laugh and joke and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, it's pretty straightforward and simple. The shortest path to the quarterback is through the center,
Mm-hmm.
like right up the middle of the field, right? And let's pull this comment up here again, which is, the push up the middle, like the collapsing of the pocket in the center of the offensive line, which is basically Wattenberg, right? He's the the peak. He's the center. He's the guy that's supposed to kind of like lead the charge. He's unable to push back, and it was bad. And again, Nabman, not to kind of toot my own horn, but I did call that last show, last week. 1 week to the day, so to speak. I said, I guarantee you that if I'm Max Crosby and I'm game planning and I'm working with Graham, I am going to end round. You can call it a stunt. You can call it whatever you want, but there's different plays that kind of yield a similar style. I told you he's going to start from the outside. He's going to loop around on the inside, and he's going to blow Wattenberg up. And it was bad. Like, I mean, bad. And I wasn't surprised when it happened. Max Crosby is an elite player. He is gifted, and he is a student of the game. And it is not surprising that he was able to, on tape, along with his defensive coordinator and his line coach, identify that Wattenberg was the weak link. He just is. He's always been the weak link on my roster. My only hope and saving grace is that Wattenberg gets blown up so badly against the Chiefs that come bye week, my coaching staff is basically forced to make a change, which is because our bye for the Denver Broncos is the week after we play the Chiefs. So after this
we've
week,
got the same bye.
Yeah. Week 12, right? So
yeah.
So my only hope for my Denver Broncos is that we put in like maybe Alex Forsyth, who's a better run blocking. So basically like the angry kind of blocker kind of look that you're wanting from your center. That is my team's only hope. And the sad part about all this is I don't even much care for Alex Forsyth as a lineman either. Like, I have a whole host of other issues with him as a lineman.
It's like, what's the worst, two evils, crap or more crap? So you take the crap.
Well, I've always said, and I've been consistent in this as well, I would always much rather have an offensive center who is a superior run blocking lineman, a guy that can move guys off the ball and plays with that, extra nasty in terms of how they play the game. Because I believe that pass protection as an offensive lineman is something that is teachable, if you will. I think that there can be some technique that is taught to better pass protect. What I do not believe is something that you can truly teach is the run blocking. I believe run blocking is almost more of a mentality than it is a teachable trait or skill. And I just think that it is a very uphill battle for a lineman to try to learn how to be that extra gear of aggressive. And I think we've seen it throughout the NFL. I think there's very few linemen that go from being crappy run blockers to all of a sudden being fantastic run blockers.
I feel like a run blocking, there's more layers to it.
Yep.
There's more layers.
More
you
nastiness.
said in the past, you've got to have some will. You know what I mean? I feel like pass blocking, that's will as well. But then that's where your technique has to be sound, in my opinion.
Agreed. And also you got some help. Typically, when you got some pass blocking, you may get some help from either another lineman or a tight end, running back, so a lot of times you may have to do like with the run block. Again, you're going to have to push that guy back, that 300-pound defensive tackle, and then may have to peel off him and then go hit another 250-pound linebacker.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's a mentality, right? It's
Right.
I'm not going to let my opponent push me backwards into my quarterback. I am going to be pushing them backwards into each other. It's very much like a willpower mental mindset thing. And I've heard Mark Schler say this all the time. I've heard other linemen say this all the time. I've heard active linemen say this in interviews regularly as well. And you typically hear the JPJs of the world who are run blocking, like they're very good at run blocking. He's an aggressive run blocker, and that's great. I think he has some pass protection that he might need to work on. But JPJ is a great example of a lineman that I would love to have or would have loved to have had on the Denver Broncos, which is, you can't teach that kind of nastiness and aggressiveness out of a lineman, but you can absolutely teach them the technique to kind of not tone it down per se, but to at least adjust in the pass protection game rather, to complement their aggressiveness in the run blocking game. So I think it's like I said, the problem that we had in this game and what you're seeing with Bo, to kind of circle back and kind of put a bow on it, is Bo is used to having linemen come right up through the middle, right down the center, and he's now always like head on a swivel, unable to just like feel comfortable that he can actually climb the pocket. And then the problem with that as a mentality is when the pocket is actually there for you to climb, you still think the same way. You still think that there's someone that's going to come down and kick your ass, right? So this is a huge problem for Bo Nix. He's got to fix it. He's got to course correct.
I feel like, I don't know, Richie. Sometimes you just got to sit in there and take a lick, man. You got to sometimes you got to get in there. We've talked about it in the past shows where if pressure comes up the middle, immediate pressure, you're screwed. Like that's the worst place because there's nowhere really to go. Because you go left, you go right, you try to roll, you've got an end on each side coming at you. But sometimes that immediate pressure is nothing you can do. But I mean, look, there's sidestepping and there's that, or you just take a lick, right? Like there's that. And so try not to get the happy feet as much. But is that what you're saying? Is that he's got happy feet and he's just
he's definitely got happy feet. And the whole thing is besides Wattenberg, he's got a pretty good offensive line. And I agree, like even when you got a clean pocket. So this is a kid. Is this going to be something with maturity? I just look at the same game with Gino. Gino's not bouncing around with the happy feet. He's standing in there, enough to where he gets hurt during the game, from standing in the pocket.
He got himself clocked.
I don't even know. That play might have been a late hit because I've watched it several times and the ball was already gone and he's just starting to like leave the ground to leap over the offensive lineman.
That was 100. There's 2 times he got drilled, and I'm like, "Whoa, where's?"
And there was no flag.
No, yeah, and yeah.
And to answer Nav's question, he asked about who's the best one. Since our offensive line is decimated. Yeah, I think Forsythe. It might be the best offensive lineman that we have, on the squad because Glaze is kind of having that same thing, the sophomore slump. He played better last season than he's playing this season. So for the Raider fans in here, I mean, do you want to see Putnam or I'm not sorry, Putnam, Parham, supposedly he may or may not come back. It's supposed to be like a high ankle sprain. So guys usually take several weeks for that, but he's already out there practicing. Do you want to see Putnam? Or again, they brought up Caleb Rogers, I'm sorry. the third round draft pick rookie, I want to see the rookies. I don't want to see any more of these old guys, recycled retreads that are be good for maybe the end of the season and still play poorly. I want to see the young kids, when you know you're not going to go anywhere, get those reps in. Get those reps in so that way next year they kind of, get the taste of what NFL football is versus a player that has not even been on the he's on the roster, active roster, but not active.
Jack, unfortunately, like, you, me, and every other fan, we'd like to see certain players go back there, but those guys that you're talking about, you want to see playing time. That's break glass in case of emergency kind of stuff, in my opinion, because they have an investment in Gino back there, right? They're paying him a certain amount of money. And they're like, we're not going to put these unproven guys to protect him unless we absolutely have to, unless everybody else is going down. You guys lost 2 guys, so assuming you have 2 more swing offensive linemen on that starting 53 or 46 or whatever it is during game days, those are guys that are probably going to step up, and then you're going to elevate some guys or whatever. Yeah, they just don't do that. Maybe if you put if Pickett or Aiden O'Connell maybe start playing, because they're not a huge cap hit, to the front office, that's when I would probably see those younger guys come up. But for Gino, probably not.
No, I don't see it for Gino, just for the simple fact of who's the head coach is, in a way, Pete Carroll. So if it was probably a different head coach, I would see these guys probably getting in and, and getting that, because again, you are not going to the playoffs this year. And again, you're going to have, I think we're going to have 10 picks in a draft next year. So you got to see what these guys can contribute, because you got a whole nother draft. If you don't play them, then you don't know. And that can alter your draft plans for the next year. So I'm not liking what I'm seeing on that. And I'm not even liking the play calling, from Chip Kelly, is how do you do, again, a good Broncos defense? I know there was a lot of double teams in there. How do you throw the ball one time to Brock Bowers?
Yeah.
One time, one catch, 31 yards. I mean, you just don't do that. So
it seems like they should have had a better plan, better game plan for Brock. I mean, that's your guys' heart and soul of that offense.
That I agree with, actually. I agree with that. And Jack, I can actually answer some of it. What I saw with your team doing with Brock Bowers is twofold. Number one, your offensive line was getting beaten so badly by some of the defensive linemen on the Broncos that, to Brock's credit, he was one of the few guys that was actually I was actually fairly impressed with how well he was slowing down some of the defensive linemen for the Broncos. He wasn't perfect. He got blown up a bunch of times, but overall, just, big picture kind of overall stats, you needed him to block. You needed him to block. Like this wasn't an optional thing. Same thing with Mayer. You required him to block. Anytime you tried to get them the ball, there was a quarterback hit that occurred as a result of getting one of those guys like breaking out, like chipping and going. A chip and go resulted in a quarterback hit or a pressure almost every time. And
read on that.
And so you guys had to have those tight ends blocking. Like, otherwise it was not going to end well. It already didn't end well overall. Gino, credit to him. He showed a degree of toughness that needs to be commended. But at the same time, he almost ran the risk of hurting himself. Like, he was limping, and I mean like legitimately limping to such an extent where I thought he might actually like try to overcompensate for his clearly injured right leg and like hurt, like actually knock himself out of the seat. Like, you don't do that. Like, you're struggling in the game, and that's cool. That happens. Like, even like every team has a game where they don't do well or whatever the case may be. This is the NFL. And at some point, you should probably take yourself out of the game to make sure you don't get hurt and knocked out, because he's literally your team's best chance at doing well this season.
I'm starting to question
that's not
that as
saying
well.
much.
I'm starting to question that as well. If Gino is the guy, like this,
No,
Right.
I think
I'm not.
the
I'm
Raiders.
not.
I
I'm
think the
not.
Raiders would be a lot better if Gino was not their quarterback. For some reason, he
Well-
is absolute trash this season. I'd love to see anybody disagree.
No.
I'm like, he's horrible. He is
I'll disagree.
absolutely horrible. Oh, that's fine. I watch the games. My eyes do not lie to me. This guy is bad, man. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I see
I agree.
Aiden O'Connell. I'm like, I cannot wait for Aiden O'Connell to get healthy. I hope they put him out there because it can't be any worse than Gino. And I bet you him being young Aiden, he'd love to have his second shot. You know, obviously with Chip, it's a new scheme. I'm sure he's been learning, but you know, he was sidelined for a while. That's who I would be going to, not Kenny Pickett, not Gino. It'd be Aiden O'Connell out there rocking and rolling with some legit weapons like he did. We saw last year or 2 years ago.
So what my opinion?
Well, let
hold
me
on.
answer. Let me vibe to that. So I agree with you, DZ. I really don't see Gino's the answer, but again, I always play the devil advocates. Is it more a Chip Kelly scheme offense? Is it a Brendan Carroll messing up the offensive line? Is it, Geno Smith? Or are all three of them guilty
I
and
think
need to be replaced?
I think it's a combo between Gino and probably the OC. Take the O-line out, right? Because some people deal with shitty O-lines all the time. So just take that out. And he had a crappy O-line in Seattle as well. Maybe not to the same extent that you guys are having in Vegas, but
True.
So this is like, I don't know. I feel like
that's a good point.
Is he having trouble because he doesn't have DK and was it Lockett or whoever or JSN that he had last season? And now
we got Lockett now.
No, I mean, look, last year I'm just looking at him. Last year he had
right.
DK.
He had a better receiving core.
Sure, but now he's got a great tight end. That's like that's like a safety blanket, right? Jack, what do you say, Adam?
Correct. No, it's what Nav just said. Adam Butler said it best. So for Nav, you bring up a really good point. So Adam Butler he's the Raiders' best defensive tackle on the squad right now. And they interviewed him and they asked him, like, what's going on? He's all, everybody can see it. And we all know what it is.
No,
and it's
I
the
know
offense just being trash.
I'm just responding to this. He says, Pete, I know that, Nav. I'm talking about Gino. I'm looking at who Gino had as weapons. He was a hell of a lot better of a quarterback last season than he is this season. So I'm wondering, what is the major malfunction? Are you missing your two outside receivers? Like, is that this whole deal? That's what's causing you not to be a decent quarterback? Because there's no way your guys' team should be 2 and whatever it is. There should be more wins in there. And that falls, in my opinion, on that quarterback. You can say what you want about that O-line, about the OC, about the head coach. Pete's proven, right? And that defense is decent, man. Your guys' defense is not bad. And you guys have the weapons. So I'm like, what's the problem? And to me, it goes back to Gino this season. Something's wrong. I don't know.
I also think it's, rookie mistake. So let's, again, going back to the game, there was 2 big plays. The rookie wide receiver, Thornton in the beginning, everyone was excited about, and then he kind of just tailed off and was out. They stopped playing him. Jack Bech never got a ton of run. So I'm just looking at the 2 biggest plays. This game right here was winnable. The Raiders actually probably should have won this game.
I thought so as well.
When you look at, Dante Thornton coming in, doing a crossing play to pick, and they do the run to the outside. It's like for a 35-yard run, and it was clearly a pick. What's up, Rosetown? Bueno? That I almost forgot guys' names. But in the way of the fans on here, Marcus Banks. Salute, brothers. But when he did that pick, that was pure obvious. It was such a penalty. Bad mistake, number 1. Then there was another play where we had a touchdown, called back due to another play. And that would have been, that probably could have been the game winner the way these defenses were playing. And that was on Besh. So it's like the weapons. Yeah, Gino probably had better weapons. These kids are young. They're all rookies and trying to learn. But that is definitely a drop off. But when you got a Bowers and you got a Genty, you got to use these guys, more. Let it be throwing the ball, to a Genty versus running, because you're not going to run against the Denver Broncos on the interior, not with that offensive line at all. I mean,
not with the O-line, yeah. You can run on them, just you need a good O-line.
I even thought, before the game when it talked about this week, running against the interior, against the Broncos. But, after losing both your guards, well, that's out the window for sure.
Yeah, he starts scheming stuff out to the outside, but then they know. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
So there's just a few things in that.
Go ahead, Richie.
Sorry, go ahead. I have a few things on that. So I think the problem that you have with the offensive line is that I think this is the worst offensive line that Gino has played behind, and that includes his time in Seattle.
Agreed.
I think that he is shell-shocked from getting hit. I think he is limited in terms of what he can and cannot do in terms of play calling. And like you recall the beginning part of this season for the Raiders, your defense was able to do quite a bit, and you were able to kind of get some things done, generally speaking. But then once the tape was put out there in terms of some of the nuances of the game, and once that became readily apparent to opposing teams, the Raiders started to have real challenges, like big time challenges, both offensive line wise, and also Gino struggling to get things completed and whatnot. And I think that has to do with Chip Kelly with a bit of a predictable offense. Yeah. I think that has to do with the offensive line not able to meet the offensive complexities that Chip Kelly wants to run. And then I also think you couple that on top of that with an offensive line that's unable to block and protect Geno Smith. I mean, even in the Broncos game, you could tell that Geno was, he was saying, like, I want to try to get my team to win. This is a divisional game. You can see the grit that he was playing with. And I think that's important to call out because he was. I mean, I'm sorry. That guy really did attempt to will himself onto the field for your team and deserves credit for that, in my opinion. But what do you expect him to do when he's getting killed? Like, he's literally being thrown out to slaughter behind that offensive line, and he's trying to make something out of nothing because of small things. Like, here's an example. Your offensive linemen were blocking inside rather than going outside on the defensive linemen. And I can actually show you the film and the tape on that. So if you actually look at how some of your interior and even some of your tackles, when they were blocking, they were almost selling out on going to the inside shoulder of the D lineman. And the D linemen were either looping around or spinning around and then coming in for pressures. It was happening regularly throughout the game.
I mean, it was like Olay, right?
Yes, and that's
the turnstile,
and that's the technique that they're being taught. Like, that is Pete Carroll's son who's there, who's not teaching and coaching and that sort of thing. But then you add on to that the additional complexity of Chip Kelly's offense, which is another layer on top of poor coaching, and then you add on top of that the talent or the lack thereof to fulfill the blocking scheme that the line is being asked to do, with very little adjustments and also player personnel not being fully adjusted to in the offseason, and you end up with a whole host of challenges. My personal opinion is I'd like to see the Raiders go out and make a priority of anchoring JPJ as your center and just stop mucking about with it. Stop playing the fool. Stop acting like idiots. That's number one. Number two, You already have Colton Miller. He's probably going to come back. He's probably going to be okay, but you do need to actually start looking at replacements because he's getting hurt and he is getting slightly older, and that's a very critical position on most offensive lines. And then you need to start looking at bolstering both a combination through depth and through depth, like through the draft, as well as perhaps signing a couple veterans to like 3-year deals or 2-year deals to act as mentors to younger guys that you have on your roster. So you have that young guy that I really liked in the preseason for you guys at guard.
Caleb Rogers?
Forsyth?
No.
No, then you're thinking of
the
Charles
Raiders.
Grant.
No,
Yeah.
he's like an international dude, like a
Lockie Tossie.
Tossie.
No,
correct.
yeah, I brought
Tossie.
him.
Yeah,
Lockie Tossie. I just
Right.
brought that up earlier, saying I don't even care. See guy, hit guy, maul guy, knock guy over.
right.
That's
Yeah.
Lockie Tossie.
I'd like to see him be put out there with a little bit more frequency to gain those NFL reps, to get him in a position. Now, I'm not saying have him be out there all the time. I'm saying rotate him in to get those NFL reps because he was a guy that showed promise in the preseason. As a team, you want to show other players on the team that you're willing to reward hard work and good play, both in preseason as well as, just generally speaking, wanting to try to get better as well. You're looking for a spark. So why not put a guy like that out there who is not a starter, wasn't slated as a starter, and would potentially put you in a position as a team where it will help shape what you may or may not need in the 2026/2027 draft.
I agree with all 3 points, and you even made my point even stronger on that. And I'm glad that you saw with point 2 with Brendan Carroll. I've been saying this the whole year. That guy is. If he wasn't Pete's son, he would have been out the door with our special teams coordinator 100%. And I agree, these young guys, they need to play. And next year, again, we're on the same page again. When you got like $104 million and you look at teams like the Bears or the Patriots, and you spend that money on your offensive line to get some, good veterans. I didn't look to see who's out there yet. It's too early for that. But that has been exactly what's been on my mind. See what these kids can do. See if you need one offensive alignment or 2 offensive linemen, what you're going to do in the draft based on what these young kids are going to do. Because if you don't play them, you don't know. And so you got to figure that stuff out to make those things when you're going to shell out, $20 million, on a left guard or a right guard, to something to that effect. See what we got. Let them play it out. Let them take their bumps and bruises. Sorry, Gino, you can take your bumps and bruises too. Because there's when Pete's here, he'll probably stay. But if they really wanted to get out from Gino, like, Russell Wilson, like your team for, Denver did, you're only going to take an $18.5 million cap hit. None of this $60, $70 million, which is going to set you back a year or 2. So the Raiders can eat that easily. And I love all your points. I really do.
Richie said something about Chip's complexity of his offense. And I think that his offense, seeing what their record is, and, now probably going forward, because you're losing 1, maybe 2 offensive linemen heading into next week, starting offensive linemen. That offense is not near as complex as it is right now. Like, I don't think that maybe in the first couple weeks, maybe he was running at all full cylinders, but now they've probably had to tailor it off considering watching Gino play and whatever, seeing what he's going on. So I know this because my OC, the Chargers OC, has said the same thing. When they lose offensive linemen, they have to cut that playbook down. Or if something's wrong with if the quarterback's having issues, mobility issues or whatever, they have to cut it down.
Yep.
So going forward.
Here's another thing, guys. It's like, and this is from, an NFL player that, did an interview, and he's talking about Chip Kelly. I watched Chip Kelly, doing this for the Raiders, and what I see is college. I see college plays trying to be brought in the NFL.
I mean, that's been his
So,
MO his whole freaking career, though, man. Like, they knew
Right.
what they
right.
were getting when they hired him.
And there's a reason why he's gotten fired. Besides the first year and a half or whatever from the Eagles, gets fired, goes to the Niners. There 1 year, gets fired. Then he's got to go down to college, and kind of he did okay with UCLA, and it wasn't until got to Ohio State. But you look at the talent that Ohio State had at 2,000-yard running backs, 2,000-yard wide receivers.
Yeah.
And then you got an offensive line, and you got a defensive line, and you're going to get the ball so many more times. And then something I thought was really interesting, and I mentioned this before, just in case anyone in chat has missed it. In college, your hash marks are 4 yards further apart. So those 4 yards can be a matter of like a second when you're doing a pass to get that ball in there or not, or running the opposite side, and you have that extra 4 yards before you be put out of bounds to have more green grass going up the field. So
Yeah.
it's like it's a shit show on this, and it's like with you guys, what you guys are looking at every week, going, where does my team stand? In the overall AFC, not just AFC West, but the AFC at this point, because we're getting that far along in the season, and I'm having to look at this going, where am I in the draft? So you guys are rooting for good teams to lose, and I'm just rooting for bad teams to win at this point.
So Jack, I just want to make sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying kind of what my point was. When I say Chip Kelly's complex offense, I'm not saying that it's a good offense. I'm simply saying that in his implementation, there is a lot of moving pieces. I actually agree with the assessment that it reads as college rather than NFL. But that doesn't make it any less complex. So there's a lot of moving parts and whiz bang and all that kind of stuff. And that is his misinterpretation of what it's going to take to win. That works, in my opinion, very well in the college ranks, because inevitably when you are a very well fielded team in college, you can often win against your opponent simply because your guy that you have doing a certain thing
is much better
is
than
just much better than the other guy, right?
It's not the NFL or
the NFL, like the worst dude on an NFL team is still like 5 times better than any college player that you're going to have on your
for the
roster,
most
right?
part, yeah.
Yeah, like generally speaking. And so it's just one of those things where I just think that it's he is not approaching the NFL as a game of chess. I'll use this as an example. Oh, White Knight, thank you for joining the show. I don't recognize the name. Want to quickly say welcome to the show. So thank you for joining.
Matthew too.
But he just said something that I said earlier, and that's, I mean, like I said, you never know.
White Knight, you are correct here. DZ has actually agreed with you. And by the way, if you are
that's just
American,
something I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, if you are American White Knight, which I assume a good portion of our audience is, I'm Canadian, so I speak the Queen's English. But either way, I do refer to DZ as DZ, not DZ. But when we look at the Broncos offense, and Matthew, thank you for joining.
We'll get into that a little bit later, Matthew.
I am actually in regular contact with True Blue Fan 1. He's a fan of the show, a friend of the show as well. He's a great dude. Recommend following his show with the roundtable within the Cowboys division as well. But when you look at
I just need one.
Good for you. That is a very reasonable approach to assess a
Which
team
hey
on.
Matthew, what team are you talking about? we got the Raiders, we got the Chargers, we got the Broncos. Hey, what's up, Cool Kev?
Nav man, I would be one fugly queen, let me tell you. Let's just call it duck a duck.
What's up, Coffee?
Actually, just on this comment as well, have you ever seen Austin Powers? It's a man, baby. Anyways, there's a meme in there somewhere. Come on, that's funny. So
I laughed at it. I thought it was good.
So, anyways, I agree that Sean Payton's offense is complicated, but the difference between Sean Payton and Chip Kelly is Sean Payton's offense is 100% NFL ready and test proven.
That's true.
Okay,
True.
like I'm sorry, it is just facts.
The fact
Now-
that I've seen guys get schemed wide ass open,
Yeah,
on Payton's offense, I'm like,
yeah,
okay, this works. This
Yes.
works. Yeah.
yes. So this is exactly what my point is, though, right? Which is, so look at Chip Kelly and look at Sean Payton. You have Chip Kelly that is struggling, what, every year but one in the NFL? Is that a fair comment? Like, I think that's pretty
About
close.
a year and a half. The first
I
year and a
think
half, and that was about it.
Yeah, so I mean, everything new in the NFL is going to have some degree of success, just because the NFL coaches need to like learn to adapt and incorporate that into their kind of repertoire. And then it just becomes, who's actually the better coach? Like, who can actually do it better? And I think that Sean Payton over time has shown that his scheme and his approach has longevity and is absolutely quarterback friendly based on what he does and how he does it. I mean, right now, Jack, regardless of what we want to say in terms of who should have won the game, who actually won the game, and all that other kind of stuff, the Broncos offense was not a Sean Payton or offensive play calling problem. The Broncos' offensive woes in the game against the Raiders largely fell on Bo Nix and not throwing the ball either to the right guys that were open, because there was plenty of them, to your point, he said. Like, there was plenty of Broncos wide receivers that were wide open, and he missed completely in the Raiders game.
Dude,
that's all on both.
I don't.
And that's
that
on
game,
Bo.
Being an outsider watching that game, like, first of all, I'm like, how? Well, I know why the Broncos are 8-2. I know, I'm not stupid. But then
Right.
watching Geno play in that game, I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I was like, what is the major malfunction on Thursday night? I'm like, oh, it is a Thursday night game. There is that. So there's some aspects to it, but I mean, that was a rough watch. But look, a win is a win is a win, right? Like, what are they?
Just win.
Like, what do the Raiders say? I'm not saying it. You can
Just
say
win,
it.
baby.
Yeah,
Right.
Just win, baby.
100%.
Look,
this is a game of inches, man.
For one game and one show only, I will adopt the Raiders mantra, because let me tell you, the Broncos win in that game was absolutely atrocious.
It's a great mantra. Rest in peace, Al.
I agree. I mean, that is an epic. I will go as far as calling it an epic statement to have made.
Jim
by
Harbaugh has been saying the same thing, and I know it's because he's got ties to the Raiders. He says just win, baby, too, but I try not saying it because it's a Raiders thing.
Well, I mean, it was originally stated in the way that it was stated by the late great Al Davis, right?
Yeah.
Davis, right.
It is what it is.
It's always going to be a Raider thing, a Raider saying that for sure. And Matthew, hold on to that. I like the way you're thinking. So when we get down to the end of the show, when we start doing score predictions, put yours up.
An interesting thing is the Broncos are 8-2. They're tied for the top of the AFC. I think with the Colts and the Patriots, but they lead the I think the league in punts.
Yep.
How is I when I saw that, I'm like, I was baffled by that.
Really?
How is
DZ,
that possible?
there is one response to that and one response only. the Broncos defense is just that damn good.
Yeah.
Like they are just that damn good.
No question. No question.
Like here, let me flip that. Let me.
Did I miss it? Were
that.
you saying that the Broncos offense leads the league in punts?
Yeah.
Yes. Now
but
let's flip that around though, and let's think of where the Broncos would be if things were different. Imagine if the Broncos didn't have Bo Nix playing the game of happy feet and actually learned how to plant his feet properly and throw the ball the right way. Imagine if the Broncos were in a position where that was the case. Imagine if Wattenberg was a reserve center in case someone got hurt rather than the starter, and the Broncos had a more competent offense. So couple the same defense that we have right now, but then add on a more competent point scoring offense on top of that. Like, so, and the other piece and the other stat, which would be even scarier, is the 2 losses that the Broncos have on their season thus far were walk-off field goals by the other team.
Yeah. So
let that sink in and kind of process that. That would, like, the Broncos very well could have been, we could have been in any varying records. But if you were just to assume that the Broncos were going to win the games that they were going to win, but if the Broncos had a more competent offense, they could be, no losses effectively at this point because their defense is that good.
Your season is weird. You guys could be either undefeated or I could see probably 4, maybe, I don't know, 4 more losses on that run.
Yeah, 100%.
And Richie, to kind of, say that, well, I feel the same way with my team. If we would have got a Matthew Stafford, who's like top echelon, like top 1 or 2 quarterbacks this year, and if we had a confident offensive line, I look at, how many games that we lost by 3 points or less, which is 3 games. If those were all turned around right now, then we would have at least 5 wins just based off of the loan. And then if you had Stafford versus Geno, well, it would have, could have been it's not, you know what I mean? It's just not. So
was Stafford rumored to go to you guys? Oh yeah, he was. Years ago. Was it a few years ago?
Yeah.
No, it was this last off season. It was this last off season.
Oh my
there was that. Don't forget the, Tom Brady after buying ownership, and Stafford and Tom Brady just happened to meet up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
On a snow resort to go skiing, and they just happened to run into each other and then hang out, for their weekend.
I remember now. I mean,
they did offer, to get him, but he just basically used the Raiders to get more money from the Rams.
I remember now. He's probably top 3 quarterback play right now.
I would even say that too. Hey, what's up, Yonkin? Good to see you, bro.
So let's pivot away from the Broncos Raiders. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff that happened in the game.
Wait! Before we do that, I have 2 things I want to bring up before we switch. So number one, in the way of like, and again, I do like this player, but I just thought this was really kind of uncalled for, and it's not the worst thing in the world. But in the way of Singleton, after tackling Genty and almost standing over him, from what I understand, and doing the cock thing to him, it's like, okay, dude, why did you need to do that? Number one, I had a lot of respect for you. I lost a little respect. Again, it's not the worst thing. Going back to the old days, guys would do a whole lot worse than what he did. But I will say, I think it's funny. Again, heard it's already been known, but he had his testicular cancer, so he had to have surgery. So you do the cock thing, you get karma, you get your balls, cut open. So that's on you, bro. And then I just thought the other thing that I thought was kind of funny, in the way of one of your old players, was, how do you say it? Rashid Tlaib, the defensive back.
Aqib
Tlaib. Yes, thank you. Man, what a joke that guy is. He was a
weird. That was stupid of him to say.
And I get, what I sent you guys is kind of, you didn't see there wasn't the whole video. They were talking about, Micah Parsons. So Matt, again, as a Cowboys fan, so they were talking about him, and they had what was it? Richie Incognito on the show, and I forgot the guy's name. Oh, Skip Bayless. And then he just after like going, oh, he has a hard time tackling, and then he brought up Max. And it's like, oh, Max can't tackle. Dude, are you smoking crack? I mean, and then he brought it. He started talking about the Raiders' defense. I'm like, they gave up 150 yards. Well, yeah, that's the Raiders' defense. There's 11 guys on the Raiders' defense. Not just Max Crosby, and there's 11 Max Crosby's on that defense. But then Richie bust out the stats, and it's like Micah had 0, 0, 0, all three, and then he rattled off a ton of stats, and then later on I watched the rush, and that's what I sent you guys, just a snippet of it from watching the rush, and Max is like, I'm blown away. It's like when I was in college, what's your defensive snacks? Your defensive tackle snacks. He's all, yeah, I used to work out with snacks. And then I went to his gym and I met his entire family, and I met him.
It's in Texas.
And his family,
somewhere.
super cool. And then he has like the saying to say what he just said. And, I met you, I met your family. They're all nice people. He's like, I'll sit down with you, kid. Yeah. And let's watch it together. He's like, you're kind of ignorant, because you're saying these things and you don't really have anything to back it up. And then then he had more to even say, on Max afterwards. It's like, dude, you're done. You're out of the NFL. You don't know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about. When you know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. So just shut your mouth.
So I had an interesting opinion of Talib when he was on my Broncos. He was actually one of my least favorite Broncos when he was on the team.
We always have those players.
Because he was really good at football and his position, but you could just tell that he had some major issues, like big time issues. Like he was just like not all the way there, making dumb choices. He has a family history of some pretty quirky things too. I mean, he shot himself in the foot, like literally. Like I don't mean that figuratively. Really? I mean literally. Like go look it up. Like the dude has got some issues, and he comes from obviously a family that has some challenges. If I'm not mistaken, his brother died in a shootout of some kind. He was literally carrying a gun and literally shot himself in the foot with it in his pocket or something like that. Like there's a special short bus for someone that does something like that, and he's definitely on it in my opinion. Now, does he know defensive backs, and does he know how to play that game, and is he probably in a discussion for someone who's probably a Hall of Fame cornerback?
I don't know.
I think he's certainly in a discussion for a Hall of Fame cornerback spot. He has multiple interceptions. He has multiple interceptions for picks and is in that upper tier of pick sixes, like return to house picks. So I think he's definitely in an upper tier of defensive backs in the NFL. But the dude has mentioned so many dumb things. His nickname was 2 Chains because he ripped off a chain from a guy twice. Crabtree, Michael Crabtree.
Michael Crabtree when he was on the Raiders.
There's some things to be proud of, and there's some things not to be proud of, and there's he certainly enters into that realm. Either way. I always liked Richie Incognito. I think he had some challenges himself, but when it came down to playing football,
whoa, lost Richie there.
Oh, with Incognito, yeah, it's like, yeah, well, he's like the JPJ style player. He's nasty. He's just a nasty offensive lineman, and he was going off. He's like, okay, this, that, that's that. He just kind of made him look stupid, and Talib was just like, man, we're talking about the defense giving up 150 yards. We're not talking defense. They said one player. So I just thought that was interesting. That all came out. And it, during the game, after the game, that's the whole thing. Raiders, Broncos are always going to have that rivalry going out there and doing it. So that was just kind of interesting stuff, kind of off the field. because, it did make the news and it's now going back and forth. So we'll see what, transpires tomorrow with that.
Yeah, man.
What
I
do
have
you
no
got
idea
going on,
what's
DJ?
happening.
Yeah, that was
Oh.
weird. You hit
You just cut out.
red button.
I did not hit the red button.
I know.
I am not.
And I don't know
Jack.
about you guys, but I still see like us on the side still too.
Yeah, that went away. I actually was
Hide
able
vertical.
To,
It's a new StreamYard feature that needs to be optional, and I'm going to look into it later. But just real quick on that, like generally speaking, I liked Incognito. I always enjoyed him as a player. He's a great example of a lineman that plays the game that I think is the correct way, which is you run block really well and you progress and learn how to pass pro as you get better and as you get older and get more experience in the NFL. He was always that angry run blocker, right? He was just that like vicious lineman, which is my type of lineman. I want more of him in the NFL, kind of like JPJ.
When you were out, that's exactly what I said. It was like a JPJ, type
He is.
offense.
He's JPJ. So, anyways, I've always thought that Aqib Talib says some pretty stupid things in the NFL. It's bad. Like, it's just bad. So, anywho, let's move on to the Chargers game, and then we'll get into some quick score predictions for our game coming up.
Yeah, man. Well, what was this? The next prime time, right? So you guys were Thursday night. This was Sunday night, and then what was it? There was Eagles Packers was Monday night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I had PTSD going into this game because I saw what the Steelers did to the Colts. The Steelers beat the Colts down. They held, I believe, Taylor to like 44 yards or something like that.
Wow.
They held Jonathan Taylor to like nothing essentially. And we all know how good the Colts offensive line was, right? And then I'm like, oh, great. We've got the Steelers on prime time. And, it was in LA, but let's face it, LA or Southern California or whatever might as well be Pittsburgh's West. So that stadium was, I heard from people who are there, it might have been 65% Steeler fans there, something like that. Just enormous amount of Steelers. And believe me, I knew this game was coming because Steelers fans started getting loud on social media, especially on X. A lot of them who were flying in. And I'm just like, man, what are we going to do? Because, the previous game, we lost Joe Alt for the season. So I'm like, I know what the Steeler D-line is. It's up there with the Broncos. I would, you got TJ Watt, you got Highsmith, you got Cam Hayward, you got studs, dude. It's just their D-line is just nasty, black and blue, right? Look at the division they play in, or the conference, the AFC North. Well, long story short, Chargers put belt to ass to the Steelers, and it was a beautiful sight, and it was so glorious. I wish I was at the game just to be like, wave to these guys. See you later. Thanks for spending $3,000 to get here and watch your team get their asses beat. Bye-bye. Score was 25-10, and it shouldn't have been 10. It was almost like the Chargers gave up a pity touchdown late into the fourth quarter. Could have been 25-3.
Wow.
It was a baseball score through the first quarter. It was really bizarre. It was 3-2. We got a safety on Aaron Rodgers. Pittsburgh had great starting field position at the beginning of this game. Yes, I agree. He's a 41-year-old that looks like he was 50 out there. It was rough to watch. But look, just like everybody, you got to play who you got in front of you. Our special teams started off it was like, I'm like, are you guys betting on your own team? Like our punter and our kicker were like kicking balls out of bounds, shanking punts. I'm like, and the Steelers had amazing field position at pretty much the beginning of this game. But there was a fun stat. The Steelers are the first NFL team to allow a safety. They missed a field goal. They had 3 turnovers, have under 75 yards in rushing, under 150 yards passing, all in the same game since the Super Bowl in 1975. Vikings were Steelers.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah,
It's like they get the Raiders Broncos bug of like just playing bad for the game.
Dude, I don't know. Rodgers was 16 for 31, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He had a 51.6 percentage, the lowest in his last 5 seasons. Someone said that this could have been his worst or second worst performance in his career. I heard that on another Chargers podcast.
That says a lot about your D coordinator, though.
Well, I'll get there.
And also too, I mean, those were pretty much the same stats as Bo. Just looking at them, it's like, wow. But yeah, and the way the defense, those stats look great.
And Jim Harbaugh is one of 2 head coaches that Aaron Rodgers has not won against, and he has played Harbaugh like 4+ times. Yes. So, I mean, Justin was still pressured. They did get their sacks. They did get their licks on him. But look, it wasn't a complete hot mess. Let's just say that. Herbert was very pedestrian. This was a game where the defense carried the team, which is a great thing to say, especially getting, going into the second half or beginning the second half of the season, getting late into the season where we have tough, or I would say tougher opponents on the horizon. The defense did their job, but I'm going to go over offensive. Herbert was 20 for 33, 1 touchdown. He was getting rid of the ball 2.21 seconds. It's the quickest of his career. He had to get rid of the ball was this game. This just shows you how good that Pittsburgh D-line was and, what he was dealing with on that offensive side. It's no secret. I know Jack and I know Richie's been, critical of his offensive line, but when I hear you guys talk about your O-lines, I'm like, hold my beer, man. Like this O-line has ESPN did not do this O-line any favors. I don't know if you guys have seen the clips. They put PFF grades under all the starting O-linemen. And I mean, I think Pat McAfee did a thing about it the next day. It was pretty embarrassing. Your starting center, the Chargers, Bradley Bozeman, is ranked 36 out of 36, and he's one of our team captains. I mean, we have guys, they were all ranked. They're all ranked at the bottom. And, our new addition, Trevor Penning, we got from the Saints, he didn't play in this game. Austin Deculus was our starting left tackle, shouldn't be our left tackle, but from what I heard from a report going into this week, Harbaugh is going to have Penning playing more at left tackle. So him and Deculus are going to compete. I'm assuming he's already going to win the job, but I don't think they wanted to throw Penning into the fire, especially going against Pittsburgh with just a few days under your belt, heading into a huge primetime game. Vidal, man, I didn't think we would be able to run against this Steelers defense. And boy, was I wrong, because Vidal showed he belongs in this league, and that, when Hampton gets back, he wants to stay right there with him. He had 25 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown. Since he's been come on board as being the guy since Hampton's been on IR, he's had 396 yards, that's pretty good for a fourth round running back, not a fourth round, a fourth string running back and a 6th round pick. So hats off to Kamani Vidal, man. Kid is playing with grit, toughness, and just making it happen. Lad McConkey, elite, stud, dog, like literally, like, Georgia the Bulldog. This guy was 4 for 107 yards and a touchdown. Like, just when the team, needed him to make something happen, he made it happen. He was the guy. And I wouldn't trade him I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, is there anybody in the division like I would trade Lad for a weapon, like not a tight end, but I'm saying like a wide receiver? And I don't think I would. Like, I don't think I would trade him for anybody. Keenan Allen kind of had a highlight. He tied and then broke Antonio Gates's all-time receptions as a Charger in history. So it was really cool. I didn't think he was going to be able to break it, and then we got the ball back at the later half of the game, and they came up with a shovel pass, which I guess counts as a reception. And I thought, it'd just get 1 yard or whatever. We didn't really need to get anything. Well, he almost got us a first down. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Herbert's carrying this team on his back, except he didn't have to do it this game. I mean, we still had to score touchdowns, right? The playoff chances, after this win, went up 87%. I think if we get a win next week, which we'll get into later on in the show, quickly goes up to 90%. But, go to the defensive side. I'm going to highlight Dante Jackson. He's one of our guys that we picked up this offseason. He was Pittsburgh let him go. Oh, okay, Ed. Pittsburgh let Dante Jackson go. We picked him up. It was his 21st career interception. He is top 10 amongst active players right now. And it came against his former team, which I thought was really cool. He's been playing really well as a cornerback pickup. Our defense had 3 sacks, holding the pit, like I said, to score 10 points. That late touchdown was essentially garbage time. Shouldn't have happened, but it did nonetheless. From everything I heard on the reports, hearing the players, how they've been talking about, how they were talking, they were really pissed they gave up that touchdown. This defense has turned it on these last few weeks. Now, mind you, like I said, you got to play who you have. So we played a beat up Vikings. We played the lonely, Titans, and then you played the Steelers. They've had weeks 4 through 7. That defense was giving up 28.25 points per game. Now 8 through 10, they've been giving up an average 8.6 points. So defense has really stepped it up. You could say the opponents and circumstances. I get it. These are stats. And it's been thanks to, getting guys back from injuries. We had a lot of injuries, a lot of guys getting bounced out. We had this section of the games, those 4 through 7, those weeks 4 through 7, where we lost a lot of key guys through injury. They're all coming back. Oh, Richie texted me. Hang on.
DZ, I do have a question for you. Like,
Richie's
out of
having,
the wins,
hang on.
as a Chargers fan, how do you feel like with this win versus all the other wins? I mean, and again, this was a defensive, getting to see the defense carry the team.
Well, and
dominate.
It's I'm going to take this off. So the first 3 wins, the division wins, in the season when everybody was healthy, that was to me the most impressive. But this, considering the circumstances, was like it was up there, probably with those those first three, I would kind of hold that up there. Reason being is because of the O-line. And you know what, like I was alluding to earlier, we saw what the Steelers did to what I personally think is probably the best team in the AFC. Maybe some are saying it's the Patriots, maybe some say it's the Broncos, but you know, the Colts were just wrecking shop. I mean, the Colts dismantled my Chargers, right? That was an ass beating. They laid down. And then we saw the Steelers, tear them apart. And then fast forward, Chargers play the Steelers and put bell to ass, in my opinion, to them. So it's any given Sunday, right?
Right. And I will say I'm pretty happy. When we did score predictions last week, I came the closest in the score prediction. I had 20. I had Chargers 23, Pittsburgh 20. So out of the three of us, I came the closest out of that score. I thought the Chargers were going to do well against them.
I had PTSD. I'm like, I don't know what to expect. I mean, I knew we could throw on them, but it wasn't as much. Something that was pissing me off in this game is all of a sudden the drops came back. Everybody was dropping balls. I'm like, come on, man, we can't have this. Like, Justin needs you guys to catch these damn balls. And there was just too many drops. But another thing that really ticked me off is the Steelers got away with some kind of shady crap, in my opinion. The refs, you're in your guys' game, people said JK got hip dropped, right?
Yeah, and I didn't, but that again, I think I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't see like the Tyree hip dropping, the Denver running back. No, I didn't see that at all. It's like he's tackling around the waist.
Sure.
And he's already like lunging forward. What are you going to do? Like stand up? I mean, I don't know. I guess the NFL is kind of make it's an entertainment business. You can make it whatever you want to make it, but
Jack,
I thought that was kind of bullshit.
Richie's not here. His weather got bad, so it's just me and you right now, buddy.
Okay, yeah, we got that side screen thing, so I wasn't sure. You're in the middle. Yeah. I'm on to your left, so I thought maybe Richie's on the right, so I don't know.
He's trying to join right now. So, look, Justin got sacked, and it was like a hip drop. It was a nasty sack. He got up limping after that. We're like, everybody was pissed off. They were like, I guess you would have to see it to understand why it looked like it should have been a penalty. But then I was hearing from some people, they're like, they don't call those, they'll just fine them for that. You know what I mean? So that was one thing that they got away with. Another one was there was a play where Steelers, I think it was a defender, if I'm not mistaken, was taunting, got up taunting. No penalty on that. So I'm like, okay, you guys aren't calling penalties. And then another one where they picked up and body slammed one of our players. That was like, oh, it was like a highlight. And I'm like, no penalty. So in my eyes, that's 45 yards. 45 yards that the Steelers did not get called for in penalties. And the reason, I'm talking about the body slam one is because Derwin James did it to Travis Kelce some years ago, picked him up, threw him down, and boom, flags, laundry all over the place.
Well, that's always going to happen, DZ, when it's against KC.
But I'm just saying, it's like the refs are right there, not letting it get, not letting it happen. And then some beat reporters were talking to Justin. I think it was today, and I might have been after the game as well. He gets hit late a lot. And it has to do with the defense, maybe with the O-line, but he gets hit quite a bit, and he rarely gets flags. And they asked him, like, are you talking to the refs? Are you telling them, like, pretty much like, hey, dude, I'm getting hit a lot? And Justin just says, it doesn't do me any favors if I say anything. I'm just get up and keep playing. So, dude, he's a tough SOB, man. And
he is a tough SOB. And and if I'm an opposing team and I'm looking at your quarterback again, like what you said, probably 1,000 times on this show, he's carrying the team. So if you can take out the one guy that's carrying this team, teams are going to try to get those. They'll do those late hits because if you get him out of the game, then your team changes dramatically.
And I'm not going to call the Steelers dirty. I'm not going to say that. They play a certain style of football, but they did some stuff, and I'm like, just you're just like, oh, come on, man. Like, but this was the game where the defense kind of like picked up that slack. What was I going to get at? We had like 2 rookies, RJ Mickens at safety, Nico Reed at cornerback, just amazing plays, both making plays on the ball for defense. Just we've got rookies stepping up, which is a sight to see. Richie mentioned our defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter. It seems like this defense they're buying in, and it's at the right time of the season. This is where our schedule gets really tough going through. So if the offense doesn't have to carry or win the game, and you can have a defense help out, get turnovers, it's a plus, man. But
and kudos to your defense. I looked at those stats like I mentioned earlier with the Raiders Broncos game. They had 10 first downs. Pittsburgh only had 11, so only one more. So that just shows how bad they were. And they were only had 2 third down conversions. And what is it? I'll have to look it up because I can't remember. It's like 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. So the defense did their part for sure.
I have the stats pulled up on one of my tabs, but through those weeks I was saying through 8 and 10, the Chargers have had 12 sacks, 4 takeaways, and have only allowed 6 of 32 third downs. So they've only allowed teams to get 6 convert on their third downs. But to go back to the offensive struggles in this game, it was the worst offensive success rate of the season, and they still won by double digits. So these are all plus signs, and especially what I saw today with the injury report and the practice report. A lot of guys got rest that needed it, and that was good. But Aronde Gadsden, our stud tight end, he got banged up. He got a knee to knee, and we're like, oh God, here we can't let this happen. So they pulled him out. He went back to the locker room, got X-rays. I'm assuming. I saw him in the when they do the locker room speech. He was standing. He just had like a black sleeve on. He got his MRI over the weekend, and everything came back negative. It was just a quad bruise. Thank you, baby Jesus. And he practiced in full today. So I don't think we sacrificed anybody to the football gods like we've been doing every week. So it was a pleasant surprise, and it was a really good win. It was a convincing win. It was something they needed, especially to keep pace with the Broncos. Broncos, they're not losing. We got the Chiefs. Well, and now you look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs kind of control their destiny right now, especially going against Richie's Broncos. But the Chiefs are on the outside right now, looking in, and this is getting down to the nitty gritty, and it's kind of getting fun. But as Ed says, who do you guys think will win the division? I have no clue.
It isn't there, but right now, I got Richie's team. I've been kind of saying that the whole year. But Deezen, I do have a question for you. And I think this is like an interesting find for your team in the way of Vidal. Like you said, he's a 4th string running back. If your running backs were healthy, he would never see the field. If he never saw the field, would he be like one of these guys that would be like a potential cut? Again, if your running backs, the 2 studs that you have, what do you see with that? Because I think that's an uncovered gem. Well, now that you know that he's there,
they went after last season with JK and Gus. They went a certain direction in the running backs for a reason. They wanted big running backs. So they signed Najee Harris. Najee was a big dude. They drafted a big running back in Amari Hampton. And then on the initial 53, for their third running back, it was Hassan Haskins, who's also a 6 foot, 200 and some odd pound running back as well. So the JK prototype and the Kamani Vidal prototype, Kamani's he's 5'7", so he's with pads, he's probably 5'10", right? That just doesn't fit their prototype.
With the helmet on.
Yeah, right. Pads, cleats, the whole nine. Not to say that he's not good. It's just that wasn't what they were going for. That's not what their scheme was built. But they've had to pivot, and they're probably eating crow right now. And I don't see him going anywhere. I think this guy is doing enough to make a case that, hey, I belong. And when a Hampton gets back, it's probably going to be Vidal and Hampton. I mean, Harbaugh said this a couple weeks ago. He's playing like a number one on a team. So I think they believe in him, and he's showing. I mean, look, if he did this against Pittsburgh, that's good signs. Pittsburgh's D-line is no joke. So he did have a couple down games, or he did have a down game against the Colts, but the whole team had a down game against the Colts. We were playing pretty much catch-up mode that whole game. But yeah, I see him sticking around, and hats off to him.
But if let's say again your running backs were not injured, and again you never saw this play from him, do you think he
would have probably still been on the practice squad?
Practice squad,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's how many players are around the league that haven't gotten their chance. It's probably
right,
quite a few. There's a lot of reasons for that. Front office, Hampton, first round pick. Najee Harris, they paid a bunch of money to, you know what I mean? So
is Najee a 1-year contract or is it 2?
I'm not 100. I think it is a 1-year deal. So
then he's gone.
Yeah, he probably is, and that sucks because he seemed like a good guy, and he was just hitting his paces before that injury happened. But yeah, man, it was a great win. There was some other stuff. Oh, go over here. I know you like to do this, Jack. But yeah, Kamani, I think I already went over it. It was like 25 carries for 95 and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Mac got it. Dude, Khalil Mack, ever since he's come back from his his little injury stint, he's just been a force. Here we go. Yeah, I think Pittsburgh only had total yards, 221 yards in the game. They had their three turnovers. That's what's killed them. But 11 first downs to the Chargers, 18. But the Chargers still had 8 penalties for 55 yards to their 4 for 29, which I thought there was probably 3 more penalties they should have been called for. But look, they only converted 2 out of 11 third downs.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you for saying that, DZ.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, definitely wasn't a great offensive game for the Chargers. We did have possession, 37 minutes to their 22. But yeah,
that would normally tell you that's a win right there.
Right. It was a great game, man. It was a great game. It gives me some confidence as a fan heading into some of these tougher games. I think the Steelers have some really major questions about their team and the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They seem to live in this, and this isn't being disrespectful to them, but they live in this mediocrity of this non-losing seasons for all these years under Tomlin, who I think Tomlin's probably one of my favorite coaches in the league, bar none. Love him, dude. I love the way he talks. I love his pressers. I love how he handles stuff, but they don't have losing seasons, so they don't get, this influx of higher end talent on their team. Their team's super old, and, Rodgers just does not seem to be the guy. Like, I don't think he comes back next year. Both O-linemen will not. I don't even know what
both of linemen will not play, even if they made the playoffs. They're out till next year.
Your Chargers linemen. There's a question there about Alt and Slater.
Oh, they're done.
Yeah, So I thought Alt has the potential to return, but I knew Slater was gone.
So
but
Alt had the season-ending stuff, right? So that's toast.
so he's done now. So both are gone then.
Yeah, and then Slater, kind of like a happy thing for us Chargers fans. After the game, they put up this camera for the players to like say something when they walk off the field, social media stuff, right? And there was a clip of Slater walking with somebody. Remember this guy ruptured his patella tendon or whatever. The worst thing that could happen. He's walking like no brace, no nothing, just walking normally, with the guys. And I'm like, did he have the surgery already? Like, what's
holy
knows.
cow.
So
wasn't that injury like possibly career ending?
There's like this 50% chance that you don't recover from this, and then it's also like, will he ever play at that level? And we've had, I don't know, the last couple of weeks on X, me and a bunch of Charger fans do spaces, and this is something we highly or hotly debate all the time. And we've got people who are in the medical field and they give their opinions, and it's just such an unknown. And I think the biggest known is he's not going to play left tackle for the Chargers, especially when Alt returns, because Alt surgery, from hearing what that is, it's going to be tightrope, goes through the bones or whatever. And everything that I've heard from the doctors, there's a doctor on X that does a show that I also watch. He pretty much says that after he gets the surgery, he's good to go. He's ready to rock and roll, and this shouldn't have any career impacting or anything. So,
wow, that's huge.
I thought that was really great news for that. So, boding well going in next season.
The only problem with Alt is he's such a big dude. Like he like like it's just like when you actually look at Joe Alt and look at his actual measurables, the guy is just enormous as a human. Like he is just an abnormally large person.
Go ahead.
And he's abnormally good too.
And the problem that you have with guys that are that size is the leverage that they have over their own body is like when like they're already personally carrying so much weight just because of their sheer mass as an individual that like they are then put against other guys that are often equally or even larger than they are to try to like, do stuff with. And you're talking just a laddering effect of abuse on your body, right? Like it's like that's the problem.
So out of all the guys that I've seen his size, he's probably the best built in my opinion. You should look at him. He just looks like a big, like long human. He doesn't look like he's not fat.
Heavy. He doesn't look heavy at all.
He's not heavy. He just looks like
he's just built
giant human. It's the weird. I've seen like left tackles that are just like these big, fat, giant, not like super tall guys and stuff. Like, and I'm like, I see that.
I will fly down to Tennessee and I will find you.
I will say you do not want to drive up on Mav's driveway. I'll tell you that, and I will never say why.
The social media team has done stuff with Joe Alt. Just recently they did a thing with Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton, and you can see the differences in these guys. Like Joe Alt is just a massive man, and like they're both massive humans, but one has a lot of fat on him, and one is trim dude.
Yes, and it's in his shoulders, the arms, the legs.
I guess what you're saying is Joe Alt is built very much like Mike McGlinchey. Have you ever seen him?
Yeah, he's another they're both Notre Dame guys, right? I've seen them both.
Yeah, McGlinchey. When you look at him, you're like, you're a lineman, and then you see him beside like a normal sized person, and you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like oh, like he is. So I guess what you're referring to is Joe Alt is just a very large person, but is not like fat.
He reminds me of like someone from one of the Scandinavian countries.
Right, like a Viking. Like you look at him, he's like a Viking, right? He's just like
a giant
yes,
dude. Like,
yes,
and this team has like 4 or 5 guys on the line that are like above 6'6". There's like this Austin Deculus guy. He's like 6'7" or whatever. Mekhi Becton's 6'8". But you look at their body
6'8". I thought he was like 6'5". I'm like, that body shape compared to Alt is so different.
Becton's like
he looks squatty and like, shorter. Yeah. Alt just tall and lean. And McGlinchey, I feel like, you got a McGlinchey, but you can add another couple inches.
Oh, and Trevor like Penning.
3 inches on the Alt, to get there.
Trevor Penning, who we just got, he's like 6'7" or something as well. And they have a thing. This organization has a thing for large humans. And so far, it really hasn't worked because, look, both those running backs are out. We talked about large. Only Bronco fan. Welcome. That's funny.
The easiest way I can say it would if you took a Michael Mayers and you added, another 4 inches and like another 150 pounds, you would have Joe Alt.
No, Penning didn't play. Penning will probably. So as of reports, Penning is gonna compete, quote unquote, compete, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna be left tackle in Jacksonville. But yeah.
That's why I did this now. I'm like, there you go, bro. It hasn't been there in many years.
I'm the same, dude. I'm the same.
At one point, Jack, I will catch up, but not for a few years yet, I don't think. So
I hope you never catch up. I hope you keep it, bro.
That is a genetic impossibility, sadly.
I don't know. I'm hearing these Asian countries are doing some really fantastic things over there. I'm hoping we get some of that magical juice they've got.
Then I'm hoping for my kids because my kids are, half Irish, half Japanese. So hopefully they stay with the mom side of the family.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah.
But look, no one likes to see anyone in these sports go through these injuries, right? Like, let's just call it like what it is, right?
I mean, look, dude, like a division, competing for the division, like sure, like because this is another thing Chargers fans are talking about, and other people, pundits, that they're like, what would this Chargers team be if they still had both their starting tackles? What we're 7-3. Where would they be? Would that could they be 9-1 or something? Because there's those things that are. The only one maybe is that Indianapolis game, but we were missing a lot of guys in the Indianapolis game, so we'll never know. And then now going into everybody's predicting the playoffs, everybody's predicting the Chiefs are going to jump past us considering with schedule. And maybe I have some false hope because what I just saw them still be able to win against Pittsburgh. Now, albeit Pittsburgh's offense looked like crap. And so I'm like, okay, now here we go. Now we got to think about teams that are more complete, which I think we're going to be going against a more complete team in Jacksonville.
Well, I think you got, we'll do our score predictions when we get there. But I will say this. You said a key word, which, you and Richie both have, is the word hope. And that's a strong, powerful word for both you guys. And it makes you guys, as fans, it makes you excited. You want to see the next game. You want to see what these teams, how far they can go, what they're going to do. So as long as you have that word hope, it's going to make your season super exciting. I'm kind of looking at it differently. I'm looking at, I want competitive games like against Jacksonville, losing 1 point in overtime, played extremely well. The season's already been over since that game. Played Rich's team, again, bad game for both teams. We lost by 3 points, but played well enough to keep it a game that, Richie had us losing by like 20 points by 3. So I'm like going, I'm kind of hoping, I don't want Mike Tomlin. I don't want the mediocrity. I'm 54 years old or 55 years old. So I only got so many years left on this planet. And it's been since 2002 to see a Super Bowl, which is the loser. And then before then, it was 83. How many years is that? I only got so many years left on this planet. And I don't want any more of this mediocrity. I want the Raiders to get that quarterback, to get that guy.
Dude.
So again, no more Mike Tomlin stuff where you are just good enough to make the playoffs. You're out first round. And again, when the Raiders are not even sniffing that, hey, as long as it's competitive and there's no tanking, because we're bad enough to lose every game. But as long as we're competitive, I want to see them get up that board to be able to get that franchise quarterback, which you got, and what you got, which I don't have. And that makes a difference because quarterback means so much in the NFL. I want to see that guy on my team. And then you got in our division, Patrick Mahomes.
I'm going to course correct you there a little bit, Jack. So you're potentially missing two things.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, I agree. You need the franchise quarterback. However, the question is now, is Pete Carroll the right head coach to put the right staff around a franchise quarterback to develop him? Now, when he was in Seattle, I believe the answer is yes. He had this like young rah mentality when he was in Seattle. Like he was a really unique head coach, right? He had the competition days. He had this like iron sharpens iron mentality, which was a really unique coaching style. And I think that young men in particular love that. Hey, you're gonna challenge me. Let me rise to that equation. Like let me rise to the occasion that you put before me. I'm gonna show you that I deserve to be on the field. I'm gonna come from that undrafted free agent status to become a starter on your team because you're allowing me to compete, etc., etc. I am not seeing the same Pete Carroll that I saw in Seattle with the Raiders. So when I'm looking at your team and what I'm seeing, you have, I'm going to say, a combination of three potential problems. Number one, yes, I think that you are potentially bad enough, if you will, this season to get yourself in a position to get yourself that franchise quarterback. That would certainly give you the potential of being more competitive within the division. Correct. Number two, though, I believe that Pete Carroll is an excellent coach. The problem is I'm not convinced that Pete has shown that he learned his lessons from Seattle and is carrying forward the good things and leaving behind the bad things. And number three is your ownership group. I would be demanding that Pete Carroll return to his old competitive style and ways from Seattle if I'm Mark Davis. I'm just not convinced that Mark Davis is approaching things from that perspective. And I think that those three things combined, even if you got your franchise quarterback, I don't think that you're going to get rid of Pete Carroll this year. I don't think that Mark Davis is going anywhere for at least 5 years, at least. And therefore, I think that you're going to be in a challenging position to develop a young quarterback until everything is aligned. That's just my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong. Look, it's happened before, and it'll happen again, right?
So, well, yeah, there's things that you're wrong, and there's things that you're right, and there's things I agree and I don't agree. But in the way of no compete, and I think I sent you guys this stuff, behind the scenes about compete and no compete. That is, Richie, you're 100% facts. The old Pete Carroll would do the compete no matter where you are. So it's kind of like, okay, like I'll use this as an example. Caillou Blue Kelly, worst cornerback in the league. And he came out of nowhere. He was sitting on the couch. They brought him in. He sucked horrible. They brought in, their third round draft pick. He played better. Again, against the Broncos, he did good. He had 2 picks in the game. He had both, the picks in the game, but he's still not that good. And what we found, with JPJ that I've talked about, why is JPJ not playing a center? Why does he have to fight for Kappa? Why are not all the young guys, the 2 third-round draft picks that I talked about earlier in the show, why are they not getting a run? Why are the 2 defensive tackles that they drafted 4th and the 6th round, why are they not getting a run? And again, the wide receivers, Thornton in the beginning, because, he had the amazing stats, 6'4", 6'5", runs a 4.3 40, got, some run. And then Jack Besh, their 2nd round pick, was getting no run. So I kind of feel with, compete kind of means this year versus maybe years past. If you're a Pete Carroll guy, you don't compete. If you're not a Pete Carroll guy, you compete. And I'll leave it at that.
Right. But
ownership wise, I will say no. I think, Mark is doing what Mark's done. He doesn't try to get his hands, like into the mud where he's going to control. He's not like a Jerry Jones, not like the old Al Davis was, in saying, I'm going to control things. I'm going to try to bring guys, Subway. I'm going to try to bring guys, to do this for me, because I know I don't know what my dad knows, and I can't even compare to my dad. So if I even try to be like my dad, then I'm just going to look even more foolish.
Right. I guess what I'm getting at with Mark Davis is it's great to know that you have some self-awareness, which I actually think he has a lot of. I think that's the common misconception with Mark Davis. I think he is incredibly self-aware, which is certainly more credit than most people give him. I'm willing to give him that, actually. But I think what Mark Davis needs to step up and basically turn back to the front office and Pete Carroll and say, we brought you here because of your
Right.
Your wisdom combined with your wisdom combined with your youthful approach to coaching. So he is old, but he basically acted like he was younger. If you understand what I mean, like,
no, I do. He brought up more energy than a lot of players.
Right.
At 74.
Exactly. And the problem that we're seeing right now is he's lost that edge. He's lost that, like, I don't give a crap what you're saying. You're going to compete for the job, even if you're the starter. That UDFA guy there is looking awfully good. Why don't I play him instead? And I think that that's a completely above board approach to the entire situation here. I think that's exactly the right way to run a team. You saw the Legion of Boom. You saw Cam Chancellor. You saw all those guys, Richard Sherman. Like, these guys came from varying places in the draft, and they fielded one of the best defenses because of the pure competition that they had. And on top of that, they found gems in various positions across their offensive as well, aside from their offensive line, which sucked balls. But the offensive side of the ball, they got guys like Bennett and what was the other guy's name? The main wide receiver for Russell Wilson in Seattle.
The guy just went to the
Baldwin.
Steelers.
Baldwin.
Oh, Baldwin.
He was a late round draft pick that basically competed his way to the top, right? Like he was an average guy that did really well, and that's exactly what that type of competition.
And Richie, I agree with you with Seattle. So I got to jump in. But it's what I just said is, like, that's the difference between Pete back then and the Pete now. Like when Geno threw those 3 interceptions and was just against Kansas City. Oh my God, it was so bad. Why would you not bring in a backup to see anything? Because he was doing nothing. And then Pete comes out and he says, it felt like Alvin Iverson. Oh, it was, well, if we're not going to win, it's practice. It's practice. What the hell? Who in the hell wants to hear practice? You're playing a NFL interdivision AFC West game, and if you're not getting it done, and if you're talking about compete, then you need to get someone in there to try to compete. None of this practice stuff. So the nation's kind of seen it, and it's like we're all kind of like now we're starting to get to the way it's like we don't want change. We feel like there's a lot of dysfunction on the offense. We talked about it on the show. The offensive line coach, the offensive coordinator, and and Pete's in control of this, and he's letting this dysfunction happen. So I'm downgrading him on that. I don't feel it's time to move on from Pete Carroll, but I feel like Pete Carroll needs to look at some of his old stuff, his old film, and go, oh, that was the man that I used to be, and that's what I need to bring back versus what he's doing at 74-year-old Pete, because he's contradicting a lot of the stuff that he did when he was young. So when he was young, everything that you said,
Right,
facts,
but that
and I
needs to
agree
come
with it,
from
but not
ownership.
now.
That needs to
How do you
come
feel
from
about
ownership,
ownership?
and just Raider way on. Well, because ownership is really the only one that can go back to the head coach and say, myself and the front office brought you in for A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that you have brought, say, more stability to the organization, but the other elements, like let's just say B and C, you are not fulfilling. And you need to do better. And I think that the only person that can really have that kind of candid conversation and basically have the foundation beneath him in order to not be kind of walked over by someone like Pete Carroll is Davis, Mark Davis in particular.
But that's the way to talk to it. I think Mark Davis is kind of more hands off, and he lets Pete run the show. And
I understand,
now,
but my point is that's part of the
no
problem.
firing Pete. We want Pete. We still want Pete back. I don't want turnover.
I do not think that firing Pete is the right answer. But my point is that the ownership as a leader has to show that they are in fact a leader of the franchise. Sorry, one of the leaders of the franchise. And if they don't, then I do think that your franchise as a whole will forever live in this like cyclical cycle of, you'll have fits and spurts where the right things will happen and you'll look good, but you'll never have that consistency that you used to have of yesteryear, which by the way was great, right? Like make no mistake, the Raiders organization under Al Davis tutelage was great for a long stretch period of time.
Right.
But you need to have the ownership to be part of the solution and not necessarily part of the problem. And I'm not necessarily saying that Mark Davis is part of the problem. I'm simply saying that he needs to step up to show the leadership is there behind the organization to ensure that your collective organization is moving in the right direction. That's my only point.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of would like to see. Again, we never get to see it. It's like with Tom Brady with his background, as an owner, whispering in Mark's ear to do those type of things, to make those adjustments and have those conversations. I mean, I think that's part of the reason, besides, knowing that Carroll Davis is going to die. And this is the same thing that Al did when he was getting ready to pass on. He sold a portion of the team because then you get away from the inheritance tax. And that's kind of what Mark did to do the same thing, because Carroll's the owner, right? Mark and Carroll are the owners. So when she's going to go to get away from that inheritance tax, so hopefully Tom, will whisper stuff in his ear going, this is what you need to talk to Pete about. This is what you need to bring up.
Yeah, but why are we assuming that Tom knows how to run a team?
I'm not saying he does know how to run a team, but I'm sure after being there as a football player, if any of our pros and you play at a high level and you see what winning organizations do to, make those type of suggestions to the owner when you have a vested interest in the team now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, advice, doesn't hurt, right? Especially from Tom, what made them so successful in New England, and then Tampa was just like getting everybody. essentially. You know what I mean? That was kind of an unfair. That's kind of like what the Rams did when they won their Super Bowl a few years ago. That's what Tampa did, in my opinion.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing.
Just win, baby. Just get any Super Bowl you can. Look at the Rams.
It's just
look
teams
how far they
aren't
extended
ready.
those contracts.
It's just some teams or organizations aren't willing to gamble like that, to risk it all. You know what I mean? Because if you don't hit on it, you set your franchise back a few seasons or even longer. You never know.
Yep.
I'm kind of curious, talking about, Super Bowls and franchises. Like, Richie, you got the biggest game coming up this week.
So that is a wonderful transition, Jack. Glad you brought that up. I just looked up the schedule for both the Chiefs and the Broncos. I do think that the Broncos, obviously due to our record last year, like we were not the top of the division. I do think we have a more favorable schedule this year than the Chiefs. And I think that's why you're seeing the records be different. I think that our defense, like I said before in the show, is certainly that good. Like they are elite in terms of a defense.
Yep.
We are going to get Pat Surtain back sooner than people think. But I do think that we are going to be slow playing that because we want to make sure he's back for the playoffs if we are able to make it that far. Now,
so you're like,
Richie, you brought up the favorable schedule. Oh, I'm sorry, DZ, go ahead.
No, I mean, he's talking about possibly missing the playoffs. That's not happening.
But when I look ahead from what my team's looking like, this is a big week for the Broncos. This is a week that we can continue to leapfrog in the division, right? Like we can push like you can really push apart and get ahead this week against the Chiefs. It gives you a bit of a tiebreaker going into the next games, all that sort of thing. Zigzag, welcome to the show. I always love Chiefs fans getting their input and whatnot. We're about to
learn my tomahawk chop.
Yeah,
have you guys do it?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and hear your thoughts on the Broncos Chiefs game. I actually do think this is going to be a much closer game than a lot of people think it's going to be.
It's in Denver, right?
It's in Denver, but this is a much closer game than people are going to think it is. I don't think that Pat Mahomes has faced a defense quite as good as the Broncos this year, so that's going to certainly be a challenge for him. Mahomes has typically struggled with direct pressure. Honestly, like seriously, I think it's going to be a real issue for him. He has struggled when the Broncos have had other defenses that have been like flirting with the level that we are this year. The 2025 Broncos defense is in like an upper tier this season, which is it's going to be interesting to see where we land at the end of the year. We are certainly getting massive pressures, sacks, etc. We're just not getting the turnovers that we had in years past, but we'll see kind of where that lands as the year progresses. So I'm thinking that the Mile High game. This is like the weird thing with the Chiefs and Broncos. The Broncos often lose to the Chiefs at home, and then the Chiefs often lose to the Broncos at home.
Don't use that game. That game doesn't count.
No, I just mean generally speaking. I'm not using the Chiefs backup game.
So, but you guys have like a really good record at home. Like,
yes.
Especially, your record at home is, damn near, it's great. There's some really like colliding stats coming into this game. It's Andy Reid's teams coming off a bye. It's the Broncos with this defense. It's this home record. It's division game. There's a lot. And, the thing is the Broncos, or not the Broncos, I'm sorry, the Chiefs, they're on the outside looking in. They're not even in the playoff picture right now. They're in the hunt. So they need this win more than the Broncos need the win, essentially. This is what people keep saying, and it goes to my game as well. So it's like, it's going to be quite interesting to see how this plays out, to see if because like you said, Richie, Patrick hates pressure. He cannot stand. If you can get in this guy's face, you can frazzle him. This guy, he'll just start running around. He doesn't know what to do. He starts running for the sidelines and looking for his little cheap passes here and there. But yeah, dude. I hope this game's not on the same time.
So, Patrick Mahomes is like, it's worse in the NFL and holding on to the ball. How he likes to move, slide guys and like run outside. It's like something crazy, like 4 seconds. And you look at the Broncos, edge rushers, we've talked about this so many times. They are so fast. So you got the fastest edge rushers going at a quarterback that likes to hold on to the ball too long. So, I mean, that to me is the most interesting aspect of the entire game, is to see what's going to happen there. A big weakness for KC, a big strength for the, Broncos. But at the same time, by him, Patrick Mahomes he's slippery. He's slimy. He always seems to get out, make that one little move and get away. And then they're like one of 3 teams that I think that have 4 guys, or is it 5 guys? I'm not sure, that have over 250 yards receiving.
The Chiefs you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's like the matchup right there. It's like hold on the ball a long time versus, a team that gets to the quarterback so fast.
This game, the Broncos will be probably the most they've been underhanded or missing guys. It'll be Singleton, Surtain, and Dobbins. So,
yep, 3 guys.
Probably going to be RJ Harvey, Bidet, and maybe McLaughlin. That will be your guys, the 3. I'm assuming, right?
Yep.
But I see zigzags in here. What sort of running game do the Chiefs have? Do they have any resemblance of a running game this season, or is it just all? I don't know.
Hey, zigzag, let us know. Do they have a running game? I mean, seems like it's all passing.
Well, this season they don't actually. This season they have Pacheco, who's the leading rusher, with 329 yards for the entire season.
Jesus.
Right?
Oh,
and so
brutal.
Wait, sure it's not Patrick Mahomes?
Well, I actually have to look at Patrick Mahomes rushing. I'm just looking at some rough stats here, just trying to get caught up to some interesting things on the game. But the Chiefs, generally speaking, under Reed, with the exception of one season, have been almost exclusively a passing team as opposed to a rushing team.
Yeah.
And even in the games where they rushed well, when it's almost eerie, their rushing yards, and this is, by the way, this has got to be a pure Andy Reid thing. The times where you thought the Chiefs rushed the ball really well under Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, they generally actually didn't rush it as well as you thought they did. They just rushed it at the right times.
Well, if you can run,
right? Their running game was just the right time to rush the ball, right? It was it's not that they ran the ball so well that you're just like, oh my gosh, wow. It was just the right plays and the right positions in the game allowed the Chiefs to look ultra competitive in the running game. But in reality, it really wasn't a great rushing game for the Chiefs. It was just they rushed the ball at the right time.
Wait,
it's enough to move the sticks, is what it is.
Wait a second, zigzag. Why is Mahomes underdog? What? No. Now we're gonna play the underdog thing. Okay.
Mahomes has only been the underdog against the Broncos largely in his tenure, once, maybe twice. Literally maybe twice. In fact, one of those, and in that maybe twice, by the way, one of the times where Mahomes was the underdog was when his first game against the Broncos. And zigzag, what was Patrick Mahomes' first game starting against my Denver Broncos? I remember it. I'm curious to see if you remember it. It was a game that the Broncos did not expect to lose, but we did. And one could argue that game that Mahomes had against my Denver Broncos basically was the nail in the coffin to get Alex Smith out of Kansas City.
So
Oh,
Kansas
thank
City,
you, Richie.
So the Broncos. So the Chiefs are
Getting Alex Smith out of there.
The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites in Denver. So let's not do this whole underdog thing.
No, but I just think that a lot of fans immediately assume that when the opponent comes into Mile High that they're always the underdog. That's not the case. There are multiple times where the opposing team coming into Mile High will in fact be the favorite. And
It's a tough place to play, dude.
It is. Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
there we go.
Even
we
for
go.
baseball.
Highlight nap. He just did the work for us.
Yeah, so here's the thank you. I didn't have a chance to look it up. So Kareem Hunt is 9 yards ahead of Mahomes, and Pacheco's only 44 yards ahead of Mahomes. But what that kind of just basically says is the Chiefs' running game is not necessarily robust this year, and it's interesting. So
they're not the underdog.
And I got a question for Zigzag.
You guys are 3.5-point favorites. You were saying that they're the underdog. That's what I
I saw that, but that that's wrong. But I do have a question for Zigzag because it's good to see someone a Kansas City Chiefs fan in here, since they're most of them are too scared to come on the show and so forth. But I want to ask, what is going on with Worthy? I mean, that guy is super fast. It's like you guys saw what you had with your previous wide receiver where you guys were smoking everybody. Why is Worthy, and you got so many wide receivers that have like 250 yards or more where Mahomes is getting around everybody. Why is he not getting more targets deep? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know. I don't really know anything about the Chiefs that much this year.
Well, there's two things that happen to wide receivers in the NFL. One, if there's a certain route that they need to run and they run a route that's close enough but not there, Mahomes wants to throw an anticipatory pass. To Mahomes' credit, he is in that tier of quarterback. He throws his wide receivers open. He doesn't throw to them when they are open. There's a difference between the two. Bo Nix is skewing more towards throwing wide receivers when they're open, not necessarily throwing them open. Right? That's the difference between the two. And so I wonder if he's struggling with some route concepts, which is fine, by the way. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As you get a guy maturing in the NFL, you want to see that progression, and that's fine. There's literally nothing wrong with that. So the question is, where is he going to be at next year? Like, how is he going to learn from the challenges or quirks that he's kind of realized in the NFL? And how is he going to rise to the equation? It's simply that, right? The question is, if he adapts and improves, he's going to go from being the guy that you're talking about now, Jack, to being a guy you're like, oh, damn. Like that's a problem. Oh, no. Yikes. A really good example of that would be Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill was a good wide receiver, but he made some pretty boneheaded mistakes in his really early season, like his first rookie season there. But everyone looked at him as like, that dude is fast, like not just quick, fast. and then what he did was saying, well, I guess I need to learn how to run routes. And then his second year in the NFL, Tyreek Hill came back and he all of a sudden started learning a route tree. And then the legend was born for all intents and purposes, right? Like that was the nail in the coffin for the league. The cheetah then became the cheetah, right? Like that was kind of when he kind of took that next step forward. So the question is, if can Worthy do the same thing? I wouldn't bet against it, right? He's got a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing him the ball. And And not only that, Mahomes has shown a willingness to work with his wide receivers as much as they're willing to work with him. So I see no reason why Worthy, as long as he's willing to put the work in, will not take those leaps forward, so long as the two, him and his quarterback, are willing to work together.
Yeah,
They
it
got
kind
this-
of feels like a little bit of a regression overall for Ward. That's why I asked the
I mean,
question.
they got Rashee Rice, like that's the main dude. So, and then
Right.
Kelsey's having a resurgence here. He's looked a hell of a lot better this year than he did last year. So, he's just low man on the totem pole right now. I think this is going to be a close game. I think there's pros and cons of both. Broncos offenses looks like it's been struggling. No JK, they're going to have to adjust with their run game because they like to lean on that run game. And then it looks like you're going to be missing another guy on defense, but you guys do have the depth to fill that up. So I don't think your defense is going to be taking a step back. You're at home, still elite. Like I said, one way to combat, really good pass rushes is to run the ball. And that's why I asked about the Chiefs, like how are they looking running the ball this year?
Not good.
Not the greatest, right? So I've got this I've got this still being a close game, but then again, I see the Chiefs. They're desperate. They're desperate, and I see them squeaking this game out. And 23-20, I got the Chiefs with a walk-off field goal. In Mahomes fashion, Andy Reid fashion. And look, it could be flipped the other way if Broncos offense gets rolling, because like somebody said, I think Zigzag even said, he wants to see his defense step up because the Chiefs defense hasn't been all that great this season as well. So I still think it's close. It's a division game. I mean, shoot, it could be, even lower scoring than that, but we'll see.
I agree.
I think this turns out to be a 27-21 game. I do have the Broncos winning this one, which is inverted, by the way, to what my original, obviously my original season prediction for the Broncos is blown out of the water. I certainly did not have us as 8-2 at this point in the season. So let's just call it for what it is.
I'm surprised. But
I did not believe that the Broncos would be able to pull off some of the wins that they have. I had us being closer to being a little bit more aligned with being kind of closer to 500 with some of the wins and losses that we've had so far. For example, I did not believe we were going to beat the Cowboys at the beginning of the season. I thought the Cowboys had done more than they did in the offseason. It just hasn't worked out well for them. But that's just one example. I have this as a 27-21 game for the Broncos. I think that there's a score in the fourth quarter that the Broncos eke out, which kind of gets them, over the finish line, if you will. I think this then turns into a defensive/offensive combination fourth quarter victory for the Broncos. At some point, I agree with everybody, by the way, this is not sustainable. Like the Broncos cannot continue the way that they're going. Like it is an unsustainable path forward for a team to have such a putrid offense and such an elite defense. At some point, something is going to give. And sadly, it often ends up being injuries where you start losing a few key guys and you're not able to sustain the barrage of opponents that you have coming at you. So the Broncos offense really does need to polish themselves. And frankly, that largely falls on Bo Nix as the quarterback, as he's the one that touches the ball every single offensive play. So he needs to start improving. He needs to do better. And like I said, I have a 27-21, and I could even see a 27-23 game depending on kind of where things end up.
Same score.
I don't think I would hate either of you guys winning or losing, because there's just at one aspect it'd be like knocking the Chiefs almost out. I mean, like I said, they control their destiny, and then it's you guys lose. Yeah,
Well, I can see that, DZ. After Kansas City winning division so many years in a row, it would be good just to see them out of there for sure.
I think they've
And,
won it 9 years in a row, 9 or 10.
Yeah, it's like nobody wants, unless you're a Kansas City fan, nobody wants to see Kansas City there. But that's mad respect. That's I mean, that's impressive. I mean, that brings me back to like the 70 Raiders, type teams where they're just studs, just studs. And this is the modern NFL versus an old NFL. But again, hey, Richie, Knapp said the same thing, 27-23. So the Raiders fan is agreeing with you on that. And I'm kind of going to follow more of like, D said's, way of thinking on this. I feel like, Kansas City is looking at this. It's like, their backs are up against the wall. And I kind of look at last year, their backs were up against the wall with so many games. And how many games did they pull out within the last play? I mean, it was unbelievable. They would be losing and they come back. Like, the Broncos this year, they're doing the same thing. They're scoring points in the fourth quarter. I really feel like you can't see is looking at us going, hey, we are looking from the outside in, and exactly what DZ said. We are not in the playoffs right now. If we don't win this game, interdivision, then we are most likely out. So they have to go balls to the wall to make themselves even a potential playoff candidate. So I'm super close, DZ. You got it 2023. Yeah. I got it 2024. And by the way, just for everyone in the chat, and you guys know, I put my scores before we come on the show.
So you have the Broncos losing, right?
Yeah, 20-24.
Okay, so, and then DZ had the Broncos losing as well?
23-20.
23-20. Okay, so I'm the only one that has the Broncos winning. I'm not predicting this as a blowout in any way. I actually think this is going to be a super close game. That the question is whether or not the go-ahead is a touchdown, or if the go-ahead is a field goal. And my prediction is that, like, that fourth quarter thing that the Broncos have typically done this year, I think that they have the opportunity to continue that, in my opinion. I believe,
at home too.
Yeah. At home as well. I think that's like they just have a few things on their side in this game. The other thing that I will counter to both the chat and to both my co-hosts here is the Broncos are going to come into this game with the media narrative as well as the just general comments of the Chiefs are the Chiefs and you're never going to beat them and blah, blah, blah. There's just a lot of bulletin board material that's being thrown at the Broncos right now. And I think that that's going to lend itself well to act as a springboard. Now, my comment changes, though, in the second game of the season that we play against the Chiefs, where if things go the way they ought go for my Denver Broncos in terms of how their record is playing out, what teams they play, and that sort of thing, my Broncos should be in a good position given their strength of schedule and their defense and so far where they're sitting at overall, bye plus games, et cetera, et cetera. So like next week after the Chiefs being a bye puts us in a pretty solid position looking ahead to our next game after the bye, as well as the next couple games after the bye, so long as we start getting some of these guys back and are able to kind of like square ourselves properly. So I actually think that the Broncos win this game, and then I think that we might underestimate the Chiefs the second game of the season, which is coming near the end of the season, where that could actually be a loss for my Denver Broncos, because I think that the Broncos are going to come in underestimating the divisional opponent, thinking that they came off a win the first game and then just get absolutely demolished. Like I could actually see something like that happen, like for sure.
In Richie, what I'm going to say about that last game of the season, depending on how your team does, you may not have to be playing your starters against Kansas City. So I mean,
and that's
it
fine.
depends on the records for your guys' teams, which I'm very interested. Like, for like the next show, bring up. Let's talk about this next week because it is very fascinating. It is a dogfight between your guys' teams, and this is fun. And it's like I wanted. You mentioned earlier about the records being favorable, like the schedule. So let's hear about the schedules next week for your guys' teams, and based off your win or loss against Kansas City,
Doesn't
and
get any easier.
let's us all bring it up for Kansas City, and since we don't have a Kansas City host, that would be kind of fun because we're getting in that crunch time, and I said this earlier. It's like you guys are looking at every win and loss with the guys that are on the top of the totem pole. Where does that put you in the playoff picture? Every week it's going to change, but this is what makes it so much fun.
That's the last game of this season, Nav. Who knows what happens in the last game, but I think the Broncos schedule from here on out gets after their bye week. Well, actually starts this week. Gets a little tougher. This is where their tougher part of their season comes in, schedule-wise. For the Chargers, same thing. I would say starting after the bye. Well, we've got the Jags bye, play the Raiders, and then after the Raiders, I think that's Cowboys or Eagles, and it just gets tough from there on out. So this is going to be a pretty difficult second part of the schedule for my team. And
let's do some score, some record predictions. What you guys think, and because this is fascinating, and it's like it is so much fun to look at this.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's gonna pretty much, I think, roughly. No, let's just do some quick score predictions. So we did the Broncos and the Chiefs. That covers off my Broncos. Let's just quickly go around the table very quickly to close out the show here. DZ, your thoughts on your team's score? Let's just do scores to kind of close out the show, and we'll go deep into it after the game next week.
So okay, if you just go quick. Nervous as hell about this game, but I've got the Chargers winning 27-20. I like the way our defense is playing. I'm just nervous. This Jags offense, they're better offense than what we've played these last few weeks, and it's in home. And I know how this team has looked on the East Coast early games. They don't look that great. So, but they've flipped a switch. So they're getting guys back. They're playing good ball.
Sorry, what was your score prediction for your team again?
27-20. I got us winning.
Winning. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Haven't picked us in a while, but
Jack, what are your thoughts on the Jags-Chargers game?
DZ, we're on the same page again, bro. I got it 27-24.
Closer, yeah, I could see that too, yeah.
So I have the Jags winning this one 23-20. I think it's going to be a very close game. I do not think this is going to be a blowout one way or another. I think this is going to be I
think this is a third week in a row Richie's picked the Chargers to lose.
Yeah.
Well, he's hoping your team loses. Come on. You're the biggest competition.
There is an element of hope on my part. But I guess I will be very forthcoming that I'm surprised that you have been able to overcome the adversity that you have this season. Like there's just it says a lot about your coaching staff. We'll just put it that way. Like the team that you have built and the grit that is within the locker room, and what your coaching staff has been able to hold together. I don't care what fan base you're from, whether or not you are a Raiders fan, Broncos fan, a Chiefs fan, or even a Chargers fan. Like you have to be pretty almost impressed, I think would be the appropriate way to frame it. With you have had so many injuries, and you are still right within you're within that competition level of being first in the division.
I feel like if Justin didn't have as many interceptions and I don't even know how many he has this season, but he's got way more than he did last year. He only had 3 last year. he would be talked more in the MVP conversation than he is currently, but he's not being talked about it. They're talking about all these other quarterbacks with worse records, all this stuff, which I don't really care. Like, I think MVP is a joke, to be honest with you, especially this day and age.
Yeah.
But he's, like I said, he's carrying this team on his back. He's doing with what he's got. But look, he's got better weapons this year. Lost his running backs, but he's got better pass catchers. He's doing a good job. Defense is stepping up, and they're playing good ball. So we'll see, man. And if this Penning kid hits at left tackle, can be an average left tackle, watch out.
I agree. Yep.
And I agree exactly what both of you guys said. It's like what I will say is Chargers are like improvise and overcome every single week. With all the injuries that you guys have had, I mean, the Raiders have been fairly healthy. Denver has been very, very healthy. But from the beginning of the start of the season, it's like injury after injury after injury. You have more injuries than you played games, but you find ways to win. So that's what's very impressive. And again, I've picked the Chargers to lose the last few games, but just for the simple fact, because all the injury is on that offensive line. But I don't doubt your Chargers at all. They're not the paper tigers like they were, in years past. You get those injuries and then you're out. You're figuring ways to win. It's not the old Chargers like, oh, I lose in the fourth quarter every single time. No, we find ways to win every single game.
There is a problem with this team, though, and we'll get into the next scores real quick. I don't like the Chargers if they have to play catch-up, especially because with the offensive line. So that's if they get down in this game, if they get down big by, say, like double digits, does not bode well for this team.
Yeah. I simply believe that what's happening right now is the Chargers have positioned themselves well with good coaching, and that's allowing them to do what they need to do. But eventually there will come a time where those injuries against certain teams will come back to bite them. They're just going to be outmatched in some regard, and it's just going to be too big of a hill to overcome. But coaching matters, and good for you. Now, I do think that this next game, Jack, you're not going to be a huge fan of where I think it's going to go for you.
Oh, I already thought. Did you read behind the scenes chat?
No, I have not. Oh,
yes.
I appreciate you, Jack. We will just obviously agree to disagree.
That's what you said. Hey, that's what you said against your Broncos, beating the Raiders by 20 points, and you only won by a field goal, which you probably should have lost that game anyway. So
I don't disagree, although my offense didn't show up the same way as it did.
Well, neither did mine.
Games. Right, but the thing is that the defense still for the Broncos played well, and the offense kind of fell. So I kind of still have some, foundational grounds to stand on for my original.
Raider Zach, great minds think alike.
So Raider Zach, you're going to be interested to hear my score prediction. I have 35-17 for the Cowboys
Zach
over the Raiders. And it's not that I'm trying to pile on the Raiders or anything like that. I think there's a few major components in this. Number one, you've lost your center guard in JPJ. He was a very solid offensive line player for your team, and that is going to obviously cause you some challenges. So that's just number one. And then number two, the Cowboys are not actually struggling offensively overall, or generally speaking. Their struggles have been on the defensive side of the ball. And you can start getting ahead and boat racing your opponents in some regards in the current rules of the NFL. And I think the Cowboys are going to be hungry for that big win or a big win. And I think they're going to try to do that with your Las Vegas Raiders. Again, my prediction, 35-17. I reserve, obviously, the right to be wrong, but I just think that Dak and the offense there is – they have some weapons that will bode well in a game. Also, offense versus defense familiarity. The Cowboys are not interdivision like the Broncos are, so there is at least some degree of I don't play against you all the time.
Nav, look at him.
And it goes the opposite way. They don't know our offense that well either. So, again, I'm going to defend my Raiders, but and I'll give my ultimate score. Sorry, Nab, you're not going to like it, but again, the whole thing for me is like I also look at like with the Cowboys, they're going through some adversity right now. They lost their linebacker Damari Vonin. I don't know how you say it. Over Sean. It's like or someone is like no, I'm sorry. No, it's off pup. That's the guy off pup. They've just lost a player who passed away. So it's like either A, they're going to be inspired, super inspired, to play for this guy.
Yes, that guy. Yeah, that was horrible.
Or they're going to be like, under like, if you lost a family member, you're going to be depressed, right? You can take it either way. So you're going to go one direction or the other direction.
Matthew says Marshawn Nealand.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that. I'm sorry.
Didn't he just get Quinnen Williams as well? Didn't Jerry?
Well, no, that's what I was going to bring up.
Okay.
So again, earlier when they trade Micah Parsons, they got back Kenny Clark. He's a Pro Bowler defensive tackle. But that defense hasn't done anything. It's one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So it's going to be very interesting because, Dallas traded a first-round draft pick this year, is, getting that pick for, for their defensive end. And they gave up a second-round draft pick next year to get Quentin Williamson. So, DZ, you're right. I'm like, that guy is one of my favorite players. That guy's a stud. So now you got two really good guys on the inside against this offensive line that is a shit show, an absolute shit show. So it's like you're on the inside, you're probably not going to do much on the inside again because, again, I've been saying this the whole year. They can't do anything. Genty is getting, hit behind that line of scrimmage. This could be the same type of field. We got to go outside. Got to go outside again, just like I said, against the Broncos, just like the Jags. That's where, our strength is going to be. But at the same time, Dallas's defense as a whole is not good. And the Raiders defense, I feel, is very good. It's like top 6 against run defense.
That's fair.
So
that's fair.
So it's like, I don't see Dallas running the ball. I don't see the Raiders running the ball on the inside, but maybe on the outside. And, this game, I think, they're going to go back to. Thank you, Matthew. I was just going to say that. You read my words, bro. So Brock Bowers is going to be used a lot. I agree. I think this game, after only playing the Broncos and getting one target, one catch for 31 yards, they got to go back to that. So I feel it's going to be much, the over-under is 50. I think it's going to be lower. And I got it right now. I hate to say it. So, Nav, I know you don't like me saying this, but I got the Raiders 21. I got Dallas 24.
I changed my score in the chat. I gave the Raiders 3 more points just because I do remember, how atrocious the Cowboys defense is. But they did add some guys, Logan Wilson, decent linebacker, but he wasn't even starting for, the Bengals. And then they did add Quinnen Williams, who should help bolster that D-line. Right. But Cowboys, if they're hitting on all cylinders, they can be explosive on offense. CD is probably, I know JSN is just probably playing as the number 1 wide receiver in the league right now, but CD is like, if you look at the last couple years, I think he's probably been the best wide receiver in my opinion, and that's over Justin Jefferson. I would say CD and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. You could throw them all in that mix. I just like CD. I don't know. I'm a big CD Lamb fan. I think he's amazing. Unfortunately, I still have the Cowboys winning this. I've got it 31-23. Just like I think your offensive line and Geno just scare the shit out of me, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, it scares me too, bro. That's for sure.
So we have all our scores in. We've given kind of where we're at. Obviously, we've kind of covered off all 4 teams in the division now. Yes, he has of course gone down the list. Like he was a top pick for the Broncos, and they basically kicked him to the curb like he was nothing.
He's been
So,
good. He's been good for the Cowboys this year.
he's been good for the Cowboys, but overall, when you look at where he was drafted versus like what he's produced, and then you look at other
Sure.
running backs and that sort of thing, like he's been good for the Cowboys. I will absolutely grant him that. But then when you look at the overall like what he was thought of coming into the league versus what he's actually turned out to be coming
Yeah.
into the league, the two are not the same. And in fairness, part of that was his injury, and
I was going to say,
he had such an absolute violent, brutal injury that I'm not even saying that this is a him fault. This is just happenstance and circumstance. Welcome to the NFL sort of thing, and it's really unfortunate. But anyways,
I like that Nav is still picking his Raiders to win. He's still got hope.
look, Nav, if your
oh, wait,
Raiders
now,
win
what's your score?
He said 31-30, I think, up.
31-30
No,
Raiders.
31 rated Cowboys run defenses.
No, he picked his right.
He picked the Raiders.
Right here.
Yep.
Nice, Nab. I'm going to write that score down.
So look, Nav, I love the fact that you're willing to, pick the Raiders, even though I would be surprised if the Raiders were seen as a
I'm writing
favorite in
this
the game.
down.
Yeah, 31-30, right? 31-30. I think you're probably in the right ballpark as it pertains to scores. I think you're going to have some offensive showing eventually, especially after the defenses start getting gassed a little bit. But I'd like to see where this lands. I'd like to see if it's like a huge scoring game overall, both Raiders
That'd
and
be great. It's a
Cowboys.
Monday night game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
It is.
so it'd be super curious to see where this lands. And let's keep Nav's score here. And Nav, love to hear some quick comments in terms of why you think the score is going to be that way. Not necessarily just because the Cowboys defense is trash, which it is, but some other reasons. And then we can go from there. Anywho, with that in mind, guys, that's going to about do us for the show today. We've kind of covered a lot of ground, a lot of things here. Each of our teams has injuries, as most teams do at this point of the year as well. Some of our teams more than others, and certainly who is injured also matters, not just how many you have as well. But anyways, until next week, guys, where we're going to go right into the nitty-gritty of the outcome of the upcoming Week 11 games here with Broncos versus Chiefs, Raiders versus Cowboys, and Chargers versus Jags. I am going to be watching your Jags game, DZ. That's a game that I'm quite interested in.
Are you guys a 4:00 game or later game?
I just assume that I'm in a 4:00 game. I might be wrong.
Okay, so
post that one right there. So Nab knows. So again, inside thing. It's like JJ Pegues was a running back and a defensive tackle. For his college team. And I have a bet with another guy who came on the show tonight. He's another big YouTuber in 805. I got a bet with him that he gets one carry, just one carry. And then, next year at a big Raiders event we're all going to go to, then I win 2 pitchers of beer, or I owe him 2 pitchers of beer. So thank you, Nab. I love it.
good friendly bets.
Anyways, that's where we're at. It'll be a really interesting show next week. We're going to go right into the details. Again, another divisional game review between my Broncos and the Chiefs. We'll go all the way down that rabbit hole, and that'll be an interesting one for sure. Chiefs fans, love to hear your comments both before and after the game, or during if you'd like to at me there on X. For those who are joining us after the fact, love the fact that you're catching the podcast after. If you can click that like button and make sure you subscribe to this video, it helps all of us out. And down in the description of the video are the 2 different channels or 3 different channels that this is streamed across.
Yeah.
So we will go from there. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, where the West Side's the best side. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute,